you might see being used with the problems. We've talked about the possible group of people who would complain. All right, so now we're going to maybe put some of these words together and start building our sentence. So remember, in the practice papers, I've always told you there's 4 steps to the, and I should have kept a practice paper open and I didn't. So let me see if I can find one really quick. In the practice papers, let's see, in the practice papers, I have always shown you that there are the 4 steps and to writing a paragraph. And remember the 4 steps. Let me put it up here on the screen so you can see really quickly what I'm talking about. Remember the 4 steps, like you see right here. You're going to talk about the problem first, more information about the problem, then the solution. Then you're going to give the advantage of the solution. Remember, the advantage of the solution is not on the paper. It's an idea you must add. Okay, so let's go back to this other paper I was talking to you about. So that's the 4 steps. Okay, so here are the 4 steps here as well. Well, they've added an extra step, I'll be honest with you. Okay, so remember the first step, say the problem. Then remember, you also want to give more information about the problem. You want to give the solution and then the advantage or benefit of the solution. Those are the 4 steps. Now they've added some extra stuff here because now we're going to really focus on building a sentence. Before I do this, before I tell you all about this stuff, just remember there are lots and lots and lots of ways to write your sentences and to write your paragraphs. This document is just giving you one way. There are many ways. And you know there's lots of ways to write your sentences and paragraphs because all of the practice papers that I've given you the sample answer and then I've given you different sentence patterns. So please don't think that this is the only way. And I'm hoping that you don't do just this. When you write your answer, when you write your sentences and your paragraphs, I'm hoping that you don't just do this one way. I hope that you follow and look at all the other sentence patterns given to you. Okay. And 1, because you want variety in your sentence pattern. 2, this step right here actually really isn't given to you on the practice paper, so I think this might confuse a few students. But anyway, let's begin. All right, so remember, step 1, you want to start talking about the problem. So these are some different words you can use to introduce the problem. You can use about, regarding, as for, concerning, in terms of, and then you've got the problem, the parking spaces, the tennis coaches, quality of drinks, condition of the changing room, or the environment. Okay. Notice there is not a full stop here. If you're going to start your sentence with one of these words here in dark, then you need a comma because you really don't have a subject or verb here. So that means after the comma, now you're going to get your subject and verb after that. All right, so first you want to introduce the problem. And again, this is just one way of introducing the problem. There are many other ways. All right, after that, you're going to, after you say the problem, you can use reported speech. Notice I said you could use. There are different ways to write your sentences. But for this document, they're showing you that you can use reported speech. And notice it says who and reported speech. So who is the, remember we talked about up here, these are the people who complained. It could be any one of these groups of people. So that's what they mean by who. There's going to be a group of people. So here we have resident, here we have member, here we have student, here we have colleague, here we have customers, okay? So we've got who, and then we need to use reported speech. What is reported speech? When you say something like said that, reflected that, reported that, complained that, or pointed out that, that is reported speech because you're telling someone, you're telling person B what person A said, okay? So you're telling your boss what these different groups of people said. So first thing, you can start your sentence with reported speech. Remember that comma at the end there. You've got your comma. Then after the comma, you can say the group of people who complained and then use reported speech, such as said that, reflected that, reported that. Notice all of these end with the word that, okay? And so that's what I put here. Once you have the word that, you're creating a that clause. And so because you have a that clause, it requires a subject and a verb and maybe an object. So in the next part of your sentence, you're going to need SVO down here. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 3, after you say the problem, who complained, and using reported speech, the next thing you want to do is give more information about the problem. So let's look at this one. It says, about the parking space, comma, residents said that the parking areas are always full and crowded. And remember, I told you, you have a that clause here, which means after the that part of the that clause, it requires a subject, a verb, and maybe an object. So here, somewhere within the information about the problem, you'll need the subject and the verb and maybe the object. So here we have the parking areas. That's our subject. Are is your verb. And then here is, it can be an object, it can be a clause, or it can be an adjective. So always full and crowded, okay? Or regarding the tennis coaches, comma, so that's step one, problem. Members, that's who reflected that, that's reported speech. They are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members. That is more information about the problem. They is our subject, are is the verb, and then often not punctual and disrespectful to the members. That's the object or the clause or the adjective. Okay, here's one that has an adjective after the verb. So we have, in terms of the environment, comma, customers pointed out that it is poor. So it is our subject, is the verb, and then poor is the adjective. Okay, so that's step 3. You're going to give more information about the problem. All right, now we move on to step 4. Now, students, I hope this does not confuse you. I don't know why they included this step 4 where you have to say the why part or give the reason, because quite honestly, I've looked at the end of module assignment. And I've looked at all the practice papers. There really is no step 4. So they've just kind of added this. So if you're looking at the end of module assignment and you're going, okay, I can find the problem and I can find more information about the problem. And then you're like, well, where is this? It's not there. It's not on the paper. So if you're going to follow and use this document, be warned, be careful. You're going to get confused at this step, at step 4, because it's not on the paper. This is an added idea. It's not, they don't always give this to you. Because remember, more information about the problem is what they give you. They don't always give you this other stuff here. So please be careful. Quite honestly, you could finish your sentence right here. If you said about the parking space, residents said that the parking areas are full and always crowded, full stop, that's fine. If you said regarding the tennis coaches, members reflected they are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members, full stop, that's good. Your sentence is fine. You've given me enough information and your grammar is correct. Same with this one. As far as for the quality of drinks, comma, students reported that the tastes are not acceptable. That full stop. If you finished your sentence there, that's fine. That's enough. You've given me all the information that's on the paper and your sentence is fine and your grammar is okay. So this whole thing, this step 4 part, is probably not on the paper. So that means they're kind of requiring you to add an extra idea if you choose to do step 4. So you could skip step 4 and just say, okay, I'm not going to do this. You could just do, well, some of these do need step 4, like this one. This is not more information about the problem. This is the adjective that usually goes in front of the problem. Then you're going to have to give more information. See, this is why this is tricky. This isn't all, you might sometimes need to include the why, and sometimes you may not need to include the why. So I would be very careful using these sentence patterns, students. Honestly, I would use the other papers that I've given you. This is iffy. Sometimes you'll use it, sometimes you won't. All right, but anyway, and so when you don't need to use step 4, then you can just, go down here. You can skip to the next step. But some of these sentences may require that you do step 4. And see, because I'm telling you this, because sometimes you will need step 4, this step 4, and sometimes you won't. That's why I think these sentence patterns are a little too tricky. I would just say look at the other documents I gave you. But anyway, so let's look at step 4. Step 4 is why. You kind of need to explain why there's this problem and more information about the problem. So there's 2 ways to give the why, because basically the why is the reason. So there's 2 ways to give the reason. You can use subject, verb, plus object, clause, or adjective, or you can use a noun phrase, okay? That's the 2 ways you can present the information for why. Okay, so if it's the subject, verb, object, clause, or adjective, then you're looking at blue, green, and gray, which is here, 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 and here. And then if you want to see an example of a noun or noun phrase as a way to give the reason or why, then that is down here in yellow, okay? All right, so Let's look at these. We've got about the parking spaces, comma, residents said that the parking areas are always full and crowded because the parking lots are limited. Regarding the tennis coaches, comma, members reflected that they are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members since they lack proper training. As for the quality of drinks, comma, students reported that the tastes are not acceptable as the drinks sometimes taste too sour. Concerning the condition of the changing rooms, colleagues complain that it's too stuffy and sometimes smelly due to the fact that the ventilation system is often down. In terms of the environment, comma, customers pointed out that it is poor because of a lack of regular cleaning. Okay, then it says, please note the difference between because and because of. I think a lot of students don't realize that there's a difference. When you have because, it requires SVO. Well, you definitely need SV, maybe O. If you're going to use because of, then it can't have a verb. It can't be SVO. It just needs to be a noun or a noun phrase. Okay, that's why you'll notice that after because of, it's a noun phrase because it's highlighted in yellow, right? But you'll notice after because of, it's SVO, right? We've got that, because SVO. And that's why I put because of and because in red, so you'll notice the difference between the two. Now you'll notice all these other words take SVO too. Why is that? So you'll notice that this word is because, so you know when you have because, you're going to need SV or SVO after it. Same with the word since. If you've got since, you're going to need SV, maybe SVO. Same with as. If you've got as, you're going to need SV and maybe O after it. And same with due to the fact that, you're going to need SV or SVO after it. Because, since, and as require SV or SVO because their grammar just requires a subject and a verb. The reason why this one we have due to the fact that, it's because of the word that. Remember we talked about that clauses earlier, and we've talked about that clauses in class before. But remember, you've got a that clause, which again means you're going to need the word that and then SV, maybe O after it. So that's why all of these first sentences have SVO because of the word because of the word since, because of the word as, and because of the word that. But then we get down to this one, and we don't have SVO. Instead, we've got these words in yellow, which are a noun phrase, and it's because of the word because of. Notice with due to the fact that, it has SVO. And I said it's because you've got the word that. What if you just use the words due to? You only use these. If you only use the words due to, then it's going to be like because of. Then you would just follow them with a noun phrase. So that's just a little bit of grammar between all these different phrases that you can use when you give the reason. So the words that are used to give the reason is because, since, as, due to the fact that, or because of. Okay, or if you want to use due to, that's fine. But if you're going to use just the words due to, it also only requires a noun phrase after it. All right, next. That's step 4. So be careful how you use step 4. Sometimes you will have to use step 4, sometimes not. All right, so step 5, after you give the problem and after you say who, the people with reported speech, and then you give more information about the problem and you give the reason, which is the why, now you're ready for the next part, which is you want to say the solution, and then you need to give the benefit or the advantage of the solution. Remember, the benefit, the advantage is not on the paper. This is an idea that you are required to add. It's not optional. You have to add this idea. Okay, so you need to explain why the solution is good. All right, so here we have about the parking spaces. Residents said that the parking areas are always full and crowded because the parking lots are limited. All right, so here's step 5. To solve the problem, it is suggested that we explore another site, right? That's the solution. And then here is the advantage: to accommodate more parking slots so that residents should not have to wait for parking. All right, now I guess you could consider this all the solution: explore another site to accommodate more parking slots, and then you can consider this the advantage, so that residents should not have to wait for the parking. Okay. Next one. Regarding the tennis coaches, members claim that they are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members since they lack proper training. It is advisable to invite human resources to organize a training workshop for the coaches to teach them proper deeds when serving members. Now, they think all of this is the solution, but quite honestly, there's some of it right there is also the advantage, actually. I mean, again, it depends on how much information they give you on the paper. And then they say that this is the advantage. By doing so, members and the coaches can maintain a better relationship. All right. And then the next one. As for the quality of drinks, students reported that the tastes are not acceptable as the drinks sometimes taste too sour. Here's the solution to rectify the situation. It would be a good idea to sell canned drinks in order to standardize quality of drinks. Honestly, students, again, this really is kind of the advantage here. And now they're giving you more advantage, which can fit the taste of different people as well. Okay, so that's step 5. They've kind of put 2 steps together. The solution, and then you need to add the advantage and explain the advantage of the solution. Now, we didn't talk about this one in terms of the environment. You notice that they didn't say that one. That one is down here in terms of environment. Now, the reason why this one's a little different is because, remember, we've got, here's the problem. But notice it's not one solution, it's 2 solutions. How do you know this is 2 solutions? You've got that / and you've got the question mark. When you see the / and the question mark, you know that there are 2 solutions. Janitors clean the lobby, that's solution 1. Remind customers to keep the place clean, that's solution 2. Notice they talk about both of them. Do not just talk about one. Don't go, oh, I like this one better, I'm going to talk about this one. No, that's not what you need to do for this end of module assignment. You must talk about solution 1. You must talk about solution 2. That's part of the end of module assignment. You must give the advantage and disadvantage of solution 1, and you must give the advantage and disadvantage of solution 2. That is a requirement. And if you don't do that, I'm very sorry, but you won't make a very good grade. So I had one student one year. All they did was use the paper. All they did was write the words that were on the paper, and they added no ideas at all. Their grammar was pretty okay, but because they added 0 ideas, that student failed. So I would be very careful. You need to add ideas. Okay, I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm just trying to prepare you. All right, so this one, so remember, you have to give the advantage and disadvantage of solution 1 and the advantage and disadvantage of solution 2. So that's basically what we're saying right here. So you've got solution 1, give the advantage and disadvantage of it. You've got solution 2, you need to say the advantage and disadvantage of that. Remember, the advantage and disadvantages are your added ideas. They are nowhere on the paper. They come from your imagination and your head, your brain. But here we go. In terms of the environment, customers pointed out that it is poor because of a lack of regular cleaning. Immediate action should be taken to solve the problem. We suggest asking janitors to offer regular cleaning to the lobby. Okay, there's solution 1, so that the hygiene can be maintained. That's the advantage. Yet, so here comes the disadvantage, this would increase their workload. Okay, great. Another solution would be okay, so now they're going to introduce solution 2. Remind customers to keep the place clean. That's solution 2. This solution would not involve a lot of money. That's the advantage. However, the effectiveness may not be significant. That's the disadvantage. Okay, so that's these are the different steps you can follow. Again, I wouldn't recommend writing all of your paragraphs that way, all of the problem paragraphs, I think, because it is kind of very like a formula. I would, 1 or 2 paragraphs are fine, but for the other paragraphs, honestly, I would write in other sentence patterns and use other ways to write about them. All right, now, one thing I did not talk about was this yellow highlighted stuff down here. The reason why I highlight it is because we've got the word involve right here, okay? And I did talk about this in class, so I'm repeating myself now. If you're going to use the word involve, and you're using it like a verb here, it's not 100% the same as require, but it is similar to the word require. So if you require something, that means the company has to do something extra. The company has to do something more. So if the company has to do more things or take more action, then that's considered a disadvantage. So that's why when you use the word involve, you can use it as part of your sentence when you're talking about the disadvantage. So, but on the opposite of that, maybe you use the word not involve. So that means similar to it doesn't require. So say you would say, oh, we can, I'm trying to think of an example. This would not involve a lot of money. Okay. I don't know what would not involve a lot of money. I don't know. I can't think of something that would not involve a lot of money. But let's say maybe we talk about giving all the students a bottle of water during the DSE exam, and you would say that does not involve a lot of money. Okay, so if it doesn't involve something, then something is not required, and so that is an advantage. So when you're writing about the advantage, if you want to say does not involve and then followed by a noun or noun phrase, then you're giving the advantage. One way to talk about the disadvantage is by using the word involve. Okay, so that's my explanation for that. So this is our paper on about building your sentence and your paragraph. So remember, we talked about some possible vocabulary you would see. Most of them are adjectives, but not all. Notice they're negative adjectives because these negative adjectives are being used with the problem. We talked about possible groups of people that complained. All right, then we talked about the different steps that you can use to build your sentence. We've talked about the problem. You want to talk about who in reported speech, so who's the group of people. And then there's more information. Okay. Wait 1 second, students. All right, next, where did I leave off? So we've got more information about the problem. Then again, be careful about step 4. This is tricky because sometimes you may have already included enough information here, but maybe not. So that means you might have to do step 4 and include the reason or the why. And then you're going to follow with this step where you need to give the solution advantage of the solution. And then remember, for this one, which I keep talking about, I always spend so much time talking about this one. It's always special because you've got the forward slash and the question mark, so you know there's 2 solutions. You must talk about both of them, and you need to use the advantage and disadvantage of both. Do not use and when you start talking about solution 2. Notice here it's another solution would be 2. Usually I use the word alternatively. Whoever wrote this paper used another solution would be 2. Do not use and, do not use also when you talk about solution 2. The company will only do one solution, either solution 1 or solution 2. It will not do both. That is why you do not use the words and or also. Okay, so please be careful of that. And the only reason why I keep saying this over and over is because every year some sort of students make mistakes with that. So I just hope you don't make that mistake, because it will affect your grade too. All right, what's the next thing we want to talk about? We've talked about building the sentence. Let's talk about handling suggestions here. So, and evaluating the 2 suggestions, because I talk so much about that. Where is the other one? This one? No. Students, give me just a second. I've got to find it. Here we go. All right, let's see what shows up here. Okay, a while ago, I sent you, or not a while ago, last week sometime, I believe, I sent you a document that looks like this, okay? And at the top it says handling 2 suggestions, okay? And it's talking about how you're going to talk about the 2 suggestions, and it looks like this. And then there's a space where you can do some practice and write some paragraphs, some sentences, and some paragraphs. So we're going to look at the teacher version with the answers. So let me put that up here. Is that it? Yes, it is. All right, so here's the teacher version. Okay, so handling suggestions. All right, so remember, you need to elaborate, which means you need to add ideas when you see the 2 suggestions. How do you know you're looking at 2 suggestions? That forward slash and that question mark. Those are the 2 most important things, because when you see the forward slash and the question mark, you know before this forward slash is solution 1 and after the forward slash is solution 2. All right, so we've got some examples here. All right, so the first one is this one here, okay? So we've got the problem. What's the problem? Poor air quality. What's more information about the problem? Flu peak season. All right, so what are we going to do? How do we fix it? What's the solution? We have 2 solutions. Solution 1, open windows. Solution 2, purchase air purifiers. Okay, remember, you need to discuss the advantages and disadvantages, which means you have to add these ideas. All right, so this is here are all the ideas. This is what these ideas look like in a a sentence in a paragraph, okay? You do not have this document yet. You have the student document with no answers, so none of these answers down here. And I will send the highlighted one that we'll do today, this one that we're working on now, I will send it tomorrow. There's like 3 or 4 documents I'll be sending to you tomorrow. Maybe just 2 or 3. 2, 3, or 4 documents. All right, so here are the ideas in point form. This is kind of like what you would see on a practice paper or the end of module assignment paper. And this is how you would turn all these ideas into sentences and into a paragraph. All right, so here's what we've got. It says, about the air quality, members said it was unsatisfactory, especially during flu peak season. To solve the problem, we may keep the windows open. All right, that's solution 1, so that the air circulation will be better. So in yellow, I've highlighted the advantage in yellow. However, the clubhouse will become noisy. All right, so the disadvantage is highlighted in green, so that's the disadvantage. Another solution would be to, so here comes solution 2, purchase air purifiers. That's solution 2. What's the advantage? Highlighted in yellow. To ensure the air quality in the clubhouse. Nevertheless, so here comes the disadvantage. This would involve extra money for the purchase and installation of the purifiers. So disadvantages in green. And notice again, they use that word involve. So you can use the word involve with the disadvantage. Okay. All right. So that is basically what you're seeing here is what these ideas look like in in point form on the practice paper, and this is what they would look like put together into sentences to create a paragraph. Now, the reason why I highlighted all these words, these certain colors is, and you know what, I'm going to have to open up a new paper to show you this new document. I sent this is a document we did in last week's class, or maybe in 2 weeks ago, but I sent this document to you, and I'll show it to you now. I needed to open it, sorry. This one here. I hope you remember this from class. So remember we did this in class, and I highlighted everything. So remember when you introduced solution 2, I highlighted it blue, which means alternatively, because students alternatively is the best answer to use. I highlighted the advantages in yellow and disadvantages in green. So I did that here. I put the words although, however, or but in red to show you the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. And then I put words in bold that you use to introduce the advantage or disadvantage. The key things here are when you start talking about solution 2, use alternatively highlighted in blue. Advantages and disadvantages are highlighted in yellow and green. And the words that are used to show the relationship between advantage and disadvantage are in red. So that's why I used these colors, the same colors, to highlight the same ideas in this next, in this other document that we just looked at, because I highlighted them the same colors just to hopefully help your memory. Keep track of all the ideas. So again, advantages in yellow, disadvantages in green. When you talk about solution 2, you need some sort of word, so I put it in blue. Words that are used to show the relationship between advantage and disadvantage are in red. Now, that's not really important to you when you're writing your answer, because when you write your answer, you're just going to write your answer. You're not going to start highlighting and coloring things. Please don't do that. But I'm just trying to show you that way when you look at the different documents, I tried to use the same color to highlight the same thing, so hopefully it will help your memory. That's what I'm going to say. And it took me a very long time to do that. Right. All right. So now they want you to practice writing about these other 3 problems. So these problems and their solutions. Okay. They want you to do some practice with that. They want you to use the words although, however, or but. You can use the word nevertheless. Just remember, you can only use it with the disadvantage. You can use phrases to introduce solution. You can use phrases from Unit 8, page 6 to introduce solution, or you can use all the practice papers and sample answers I've given you, because I've given you lots of sentence patterns there. And remember, when you start talking about solution 2, when you're introducing solution 2, you can use the word alternatively. You can also use the words on the other hand. Be careful, students, with on the other hand. Some students say on the other side. That is incorrect. We don't say on the other side. It is the other hand, okay? Or like you'll notice up here, they said another solution would be to. If you're going to use this one, another solution would be to, please notice you're going to need a verb after the word to. You'll need to add suitable verb for your sentence. All right, now because we're short on time, I'm just going to give you the paragraph here. Okay, so we've got the problem, more information about the problem, and the two solutions. And remember, you need to have the advantage and disadvantage. So here's this one is about the slippery floor, and there's 2 accidents, post warning signs, or have a part-time cleaning staff. So here are those point form ideas in a paragraph. So we have, our members reported that the floor of our clubhouse was slippery. In fact, there were 2 accidents last month. In response to the problem, we could post warning signs around the clubhouse. All right, so post warning signs, that's solution 1. It is an immediate and inexpensive solution. So this is the advantage. It's immediate, which means you can implement this action right away. You can implement this solution right away, like the next day, right? And it's inexpensive. But not every member would pay attention to the signs. So that would be the disadvantage. Alternatively, all right, there's that magical word you should use to introduce solution 2. We may consider employing some part-time cleaning staff, right? That's solution 2. The floors will always be dry and clean. That's the advantage. But it will increase our monthly expenses. So that is the disadvantage, okay? And notice here for both solutions, they use the word but to show the relationship between the advantage and the disadvantage. All right, so that's one more example you have. Next, we have unhygienic condition in the coffee shop. More information about that is there's cockroaches have been found. We can either use some insect killing spray. Notice I use the word use insect killing spray, or we can have intensive cleaning of the coffee shop. So notice I use the word have. Notice here, they do not give you verbs. I had to add the verb use insect killing spray, or have intensive cleaning. Intensive cleaning just means major big cleaning, like cleaning that might take all day long. You know, with insect killing spray, you can just kind of walk around the room and spray some stuff. But this is like you'll probably have to close your business for the day to do this big kind of cleaning. Okay, so. And just remember, for all of these, not all of these, but for these, I had to add the verb use insect killing spray, or have an intensive cleaning. Or you could say intensely clean. All right, let's look at the verbs that they used, and let's look at the paragraph. It says, also, it has been found that the condition in the coffee shop was unhygienic, as cockroaches were found. To improve the situation, it is suggested that we use insect killing spray. And if you want to include the idea of after business hours, you can. Right, so that's solution 1. It is a cost-effective solution. That's the advantage. But the spray may leave a strange or unpleasant smell in the shop. So that's the disadvantage, because those sprays do usually smell, and they use the word but to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. On the other hand, so this is the word they use to introduce solution 2. We could carry out intensive cleaning of the coffee shop. Okay, so they use the verb carry out intensive cleaning. Okay, that's solution 2. Although we may need to close down the shop for one day. So you're saying you have to close the coffee shop for one day. That's a disadvantage. This solution can make sure that the environment is hygienic. Okay, that's the advantage. And they use the word although to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. And again, notice here they said it is suggested that we use insect killing spray. So we had to add the verb use, and here we had to add the verb carry out. And the reason why I bring that up is because the paper won't always give you the verb. So if you look at the end of module assignment, let's go to it really quickly. Here's the end of module assignment. Let's go to the task paper. Oh no, you know what, students? This is for the other English class module, sorry. Let me put the other one up here. This is for your class, for your module. I apologize. Give me just a second. Here we go. Look over here. Do you see any verbs right here? Do you see any verbs right here? Well, here they don't even give you a solution, or suggestion. Do you see verbs here? Do you see verbs here? Do you see verbs here? So if you don't see a verb, you need to know that you need to add a verb too, because sometimes they don't give it to you. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. All All right. So let me go back to this paper that we were talking about. All right, next, the last one is the problem is limited choices of fitness courses, only 3 yoga classes per week. So now we've got a choice. We can have variety of a fitness course or a survey with members. Okay, here they don't give you the verb, but they give you an up arrow, which means they want you to use a verb for this arrow. So maybe it could be increase, enhance, or improve. Those are probably the 3 most popular. And then be careful with this one, survey with members. You can use survey as a verb or as a noun. So let's see how they used it here. All right, so we've got this one here. Finally, some members reflected that our fitness courses were limited. There were only 3 yoga classes every week. To improve the situation, it might be a good idea to provide a greater variety of fitness courses, such as, and then you can give an example. So they use provide, but they said a greater variety. So the word greater or greater variety are the words that are used to show this arrow right here. Okay, so greater variety of fitness courses. So that is our solution. Then it says it can meet the needs of different members. So that is the advantage. You don't always have to give the advantage first, students. You can give the disadvantage first if you want to. All right, then they use the word but. It says we will need to hire extra instructors in a short time. That's the disadvantage. All right, then it says alternatively. So you know we're talking about solution 2 now. So you need to use the word alternatively. It is suggested that we carry out a survey with members. All right, so that's solution 2. It is suggested that we carry out a survey with members to find out their preferences. Okay, that's the advantage. If you know what they want, then it's easier for you to give them what they want, right? It's easier for you to give your customers what they want. However, this takes time and involves a lot of preparation. Okay, so that is the disadvantage. They used however to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. And notice here again, they use that word involves to show the disadvantage. So it involves a lot of work, it involves a lot of money. Or here they said takes time. And I know we talked about this in class last week. When you want to say that something takes time or it takes money or it will take a lot of energy, we use takes as a verb also to talk about the disadvantage. All right, so that's this paper. You'll notice up at the top it says 02, evaluating 2 suggestions. I'm going to change the name of the document to 02, handling 2 suggestions, because that's what they have up here is handling 2 suggestions. But really, you are evaluating them. Why are you evaluating them? Because you're giving the advantages and disadvantages. All right, we've got 10 minutes, students. We're going to talk about another paper. And I did this, I did do this with some of my classes, so we're going to talk about developing your ideas. Let's see how far we can get in 10 minutes. Let me put it up here. Not this one. It's not this one. Is it this one? No. It's this one. Okay. Now again, this paper here, students, I think I sent it to you, but I think you have the student version, and the student version means you don't have any of the answers. So this is one of the documents I'll send to you tomorrow with the answers. And we did a few of these in class before. So this document is called Suggestions Idea DEV. DEV means developing, so developing ideas. So there's 2 pages to this document. Page 1 is talking about making suggestions. So that's why the part of the name of this document is suggestions. Page 2 is about idea development, which means adding ideas. That's why it's called Idea DEV. Okay, so we're going to focus on this part now on page 2. So it says there are 2 descriptions. So these are like 2 sample paragraphs. They're talking about the same thing, but notice the difference. So for A, it has some residents complained that there were not enough recycling bins in the estate. Plastic bottles were thrown away as rubbish. To solve the problems, we should provide more recycling bins in our housing estate. There will be no more complaints. Okay, you've done all the criteria for the end of module assignment. It's okay, but now we'll compare it to version B. Some residents reported that there were not enough recycling bins in our estate. Some plastic bottles were thrown away as rubbish, which was not environmentally friendly. To address the issue, I would like to suggest providing more recycling bins near the entrance of each building. It will be very convenient for students to put plastic bottles of used paper there, or used paper there. All right, so you notice there are some added ideas here. That's what we're talking about, is adding ideas. There's more added ideas here in B than in A. So where are they? The first one is right here. Which is not environmentally friendly? That's an added idea. All right, then we've also got, it says to address this issue, I would like to suggest providing more recycling bins near the entrance of the building. That's another added idea. And here, they did add an idea. This person added an idea. They said there will be no more complaints. But here, they also gave an advantage, because this is an advantage. This is their advantage. This is the idea they added. It says, it will be very convenient for residents to put plastic bottles or used paper there. Okay, that's the idea that was added. So this is a more detailed advantage of the solution than this one. All right, so there's three different kinds of ideas that are added, which we're talking about right here. All of these are examples of elaborations or adding ideas, but they're different kinds. There's one that's explaining the negative effect of the problem, and that's optional. You don't have to add this, but if you want to add this kind of idea about explaining the negative effect of the problem, you can. It's optional. B, you can give extra details about the solution. Remember, the solution is given to you on the paper, on the practice paper, the end of module assignment paper. But if you want to add extra details about the solution, you can, but again, that's optional. Then the thing that you have to add, that you must add, you need to explain the advantage of the solution. And the advantage of the solution is not optional. You must add this idea. All right, so let's see what these three are. This one right here, this one is an example of A, okay? This one is an example of B. And this one is an example of C, okay? So let me highlight them so you can, hopefully that will help you see the different ways, and we'll talk about it. And I'm making this red and yellow because it's just so important, students. I cannot tell you how important this is. So that's why I'm making it kind of like two colors at the same time. So right here, remember A is explaining the negative effect of the problem. So the problem is some plastic bottles were thrown away as rubbish. And then this person who wrote the paper added an idea saying which was not environmentally friendly. So you're giving more ideas about the problem. Do you have to do this on the end of module assignment? No, you don't have to. Notice what it says. It's optional, but if you want to, you can. All right, then to address this issue, so here's the solution. I would like to suggest providing more recycling bins. Okay, good. And then it says near the entrance of each building. So again, you're adding ideas to the solution. So the solution is given to you on the paper, but this person added some extra details to the solution. So you're saying where to put them, because on the paper it doesn't tell you where to put them. Again, do you have to do this? No, it's optional. But if you want to add some more ideas, good. All right, then we have the advantage. So what is the advantage of the solution? It will be very convenient for residents to put plastic bottles or use paper there. That is not optional. Remember, you have to add the advantage of the solution. Okay, so then it says here, when describing problems and solutions, it would be helpful to give more explanations so the readers can have a better understanding. So you can explain in what ways the company or customers are affected due to the problem. So that's, again, this is connected to A. Do you want to explain the negative effects of the problem on the customers or the company? And then when you're talking about the solution, you must, you are required to add the advantage of the solution, because it says right here. But if you want to add more details about the solution, you can. Then, and we've only got 3 minutes, so we're not going to have time, but I'll explain everything of this. It says, here is some example sentences. Here's an example situation. It says you work in a large company that sells skincare products. You have started writing to your supervisor about some problems found in the company. Please continue writing the paragraphs by. try to explain the negative effect of the problem on the company or customer. And then when you give the solution, remember you must give the advantage of the solution, the advantage, to the customer or the company, and then add extra details. Okay, so I'm going to highlight solution here because solution's important. Okay, and then if you want to add extra details, you can. So we were going to hopefully try to do this together, but we don't have enough time. So I'm going to just put these back together. So that way you can see them, what it would look like as a paragraph. Okay. So here is the problem, and here's more information about the problem. Then in green, remember what green is. Green is when you say the negative effect of the problem on the company or customer. Then you're going to give the solution, and I tell you that that's the solution. And then here is the advantage of the solution, okay? Because remember, that is right here, the advantage of the solution. All right, for the next one, let me put these together. Okay, again, here is the other problem and more information about the problem. Then remember in green, the green is the negative effect on the company or customer because of the problem. Then here is the solution. Here is an added idea, more extra details about the solution. And then here is the the advantage of the solution. And remember, the advantage is not optional. You must add that. All right, then for 3, we have this here. Okay, so again, we've got the problem and more information about the problem. Then in green, we have the negative impact of the problem on the company or the customer. Then we have the solution, and I tell you it's the solution. Here is some added details that you can add to the solution. So instead of just saying, oh, we can have hire part-time staff to answer calls at night, now you give some very specific information about it, and then you give the advantage of the solution, which again, remember, is not optional. You must add that. Okay, so that's what we were talking about on this part of the document. When you're adding your ideas, if you want to explain the negative effect on the company or customers, that's optional, but you can. If you want to give extra details about the solution, you can. It's optional. But you must add the idea, which is the advantage of the solution. Now, if we go back, and I know it's 2:30, but I do want to say this. If we go back to this other paper that we were talking about, this other document, let's see, this one. Let me put it up here. I hope I can find the examples quick for you. This one here, they kind of do the same thing, I think. Let me see if I can read it fast enough to show you. Let's see, another one. No. Oh, here, right here. It says we could post warning signs around the clubhouse. The reason why they underlined around the clubhouse, because this is an example of giving extra details about the solution. So this is the solution, post warning signs. And then this is an added detail, okay, around the clubhouse. Because if you look up here, post warning signs, it doesn't say anywhere, it doesn't say any words around the clubhouse. So they were giving more details about the solution. I'm wondering if there's anything more. If there's another example of that. Let's see. I don't see one. Yeah, that's the only other example I can show you of like adding some extra details for a solution. All right, students, so that is that. I will send, I think, about 2 or 3 documents, maybe a little more next week. Not next week, I'm so sorry, Saturday. So students, this is our last class. Like, I mean, unless you want to stick around for 2:30 to 3:30 or 3:30 to 4:30, you can, but this is basically our last little class here. So there are no more classes next week, okay? So have a lovely day. We are finished, and yeah, I'm going to start my next practice session in about 3 or 4 minutes. if you want to stay, that's fine, but I'm going to be talking about the same 3 documents again, just so you know. All right, so thank you very much. Good luck to all of you. If you have any questions, you can ask me now, or you can send me an email, okay? All right, thank you. Bye-bye. All right, so students, I'm going to start the 2:30 practice session at 2:36 because I need a little break really quick, okay? Okay, students, let's start the 2:30 practice session. Welcome. For all of you who are new here, you please sign in. So for example, please put your name and the class that you're in. Okay, so please put your name and your course that you're in the chat box. Okay, so for those of you who are new here or joining, okay, Please put your name in your course name in the chat box. Okay, so and even if you aren't new, if you were here for the first hour, if you're going to be here for the second hour, put your name in here again anyway, so that way I can see that you were here for 2 hours, please and thank you. All right, so let's begin. Our first document we're going to use is building our sentence and paragraph. So let me first get it up here. Which one do I want to use? Is it this one? Yes, it's this one. All right, I think it's this one. Yeah. All right, so let's begin. So we're going to start off with talking about this document here, building your sentences. Okay, so when you build a sentence, the point or the goal is not to make your sentence longer. I mean, when you want to add details, and so yeah, your sentence might be longer, but it's not just to make your sentence longer. Basically, why you're going to build a sentence is because you want to provide clear, easy to understand information, and you want to have logical elaboration. Now, elaboration means adding ideas, and you want to make sure that the ideas you add are appropriate and suitable for the situation. Okay, so first, before you start adding ideas, there's a few things you need to know about because they will be used in part of your sentences. So that's vocabulary for the problems, and then the respondents or the people. So for the vocabulary, remember that on the end of module assignment and in a lot of the practice papers, they give you the problem, and part of the problem is they use a negative adjective. So they use a negative adjective and then a noun or noun phrase, and that's usually used to show the problem. So there's usually in the problem, they will include some sort of negative adjective. So here we go. We've got inadequate, we've got not ample. Here, sometimes they use a noun. Most of the time, I would say 95% of the time they use adjective, but sometimes they use a noun. How do you know that this is a noun? You've got a in front of it and of after it, so you know that a lack is being used as a noun. But if you look over here, you notice that lack can also be used as a verb. Okay, we've got filthy, which means really dirty. We've got bad attitude, so that's a combination of adjective and noun. Slippery, which means when the floor is wet and it's easy to fall or hurt yourself. We've got messy, not enough. We've got unsatisfactory. Another adjective noun combination, such as poor quality or poor condition. Poor is the adjective here. Poor doesn't, I think you know this, but poor doesn't mean like not rich, like less money. Poor just means not good enough. All right, then we have unhygienic, which means dirty. Remember, I've talked about hygienic before in a PowerPoint I gave you. There was a review and some vocabulary in there, and we used the word hygienic. So hygienic is clean, unhygienic means not clean. We've got disorganized, we've got crowded. Again, in that PowerPoint where I sent you vocabulary, we talked about overcrowded. Now we just have crowded. We've got expensive or costly, so that means it requires a lot of money. We've got insufficient, we've talked about lack, we've got dirty. Impolite, another word for impolite is rude. We've got mistakes, which is a noun. We've got polluted and complicated. Complicated, if something is complicated, then it is not easy. It is very difficult. Okay, so you're going to see some adjectives or some sort of negative word used in the problem because that's why it's a problem. All right, then there is going to be a group of people who complained, and that's why there's a problem as well, because somebody complained about it. So, if you belong, remember, all of these are possible groups of people that you might see on a practice paper or end of module assignment paper. So when do you use the word members? If you belong to a club, maybe like a fitness club or a fitness gym, then you're a member of that gym. Then you use the word member. Or all of you are studying architecture or engineering. So let's say you belong to the engineering society, then you are a member of the engineering society. Or maybe the situation is about a school. So maybe the students complained, or if maybe the students didn't complain, maybe the teachers complained, okay? Or maybe the practice paper is about a hospital, so the doctors or nurses complained. So again, you're going to see some sort of group of people, and maybe the job title of those people will be what identifies them as a group. All right, or maybe we've got the word resident here, which means if you live somewhere. So if you live at ABC Estate, then you are a resident of ABC Estate. Or maybe the clients or the customers of the company complained. Or maybe the staff or employees of the company complained. Or your colleagues. Colleagues is coworkers. Okay. Guest. We use the word guest for hotel. The people who stay at a hotel, the customers at a hotel are guests. And then we have the word passenger. You've seen this word before in the practice paper about the airplane. So the people who buy tickets to fly on the airplane are passengers. People who ride on the MTR or who ride on buses are also passengers. We've got visitors. So what do visitors do? They visit places. So if you visit a park or if you visit a museum, then you're a visitor. And we've got participants. So people who participate in an activity, then they are participants. All right, so now that we've talked about possible negative adjectives or other words that you might see used with the problem, we've talked about the possible group of people who complained. Now we're ready to start building our sentence. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so before I start talking to you about this paper, there are many, many, many ways to talk about or to write your sentence, okay? And in all the practice papers that I've sent to you, I have sent you many, 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 lots and lots and lots of sentence patterns, okay? So you don't have to do just this one. You can do other kind of sentence patterns. I have a feeling, though, a lot of students might like this because this document makes building sentences look very easy because they break it down into steps for you. But be careful when we get to step 4, and I'll explain why when we get to step 4. Also, I would recommend, especially for those of you who are quite strong in English, who make A's and B's, I wouldn't recommend writing all of your sentences in paragraphs like this because you're basically following the same formula again and again, and that's actually kind of boring writing. But for students who might make D's and F's, they might not have enough confidence or ability in English to think of their own way of writing a sentence, and then you might want to follow this pattern for all of your sentences and paragraphs, maybe. But again, I would be careful when you get to step 4, and when we get to step 4, I'll explain why. All right, so let's begin. Anyway, so one way to write your sentence is following these patterns here. So step 1, you want to talk about the problem. Now, the reason why do you want to talk about the problem first? If you remember from all the practice papers that I've shown you, wait 1 second, students, I don't have it up here. Here we go. Let me show you one thing before we get started about this. Right here. You'll notice in all the practice papers, when I give you the sample answer, you see over here, these are the steps that you follow to write the paragraph, right? You talk about the problem first, more information about the problem and the solution. All of this, steps 1 through 3, are on the paper given to you, and then you need to add the advantage of the solution, which is step 4, which is not on the paper. So that's why you have to add it. You have to add an idea. Okay, so I just want to, so remember, step 1 is talking about the problem. Okay, so let's go back to this other paper document we were talking about. So that's why they say step 1, problem. So you can say the problem first. So you can start by saying about, regarding, as for, concerning, in terms of. Then after these words, you're going to have a noun phrase, and it's going to include the problem. Okay, so we've got parking spaces, tennis coaches, quality of drinks, condition and changing room, or the environment. All of those are the problems. Okay, and we start the problem with one of these words here. Notice afterwards, after you say the problem, you need a comma. So you can't have a full stop because you do not have a complete thought. This is not a complete thought in English. You don't have the subject and the verb, so that's why you need the comma. All right, then after the comma, after the problem and after the comma, we have step 2. Step 2 is when you say who and reported speech. So who are the people? So remember I talked to you about the people up here, the group of people who complained. So that's what you're going to include as part of step 2, the people who complained. So we have residents, members, students, colleagues, customers. And along with the people who complained, you're going to use reported speech. What does reported speech look like? You have said that, reflected that, reported that, complained that, pointed out that. So it's whenever you're repeating what someone else said, you're using reported speech. Okay, so you've got words like said, reflected, complained, pointed out. And then after that word, you need the word that. That's part of the reported speech. The word that is required, okay? Now, because you use the word that, you are now creating a situation where you have a that clause. And what is a that clause? That clause is a group of words that starts with the word that, and after the word that, you have to have a subject and a verb and maybe an object, okay? So you'll see right here, there is no subject or verb, so that's coming in the next step over down here. All right, so we've talked about step 1 and 2. Step 1 is the problem, okay, so that's step 1. Step 2, you need to say who, the people that complained and used reported speech. Now we're focusing on step 3, which is giving more information about the problem, okay? So let's take a look here. About the parking spaces, comma, that's step 1, the problem. Residents said that, that's step 2. The people, the who, and then the reported speech. Then we have step 3, more information about the problem. The parking areas are full, always full and crowded. And remember I said that because you have the word that, you have a that clause, and we need a subject and a verb. So that means we have to have a subject and a verb here because it comes after the word that. So we've got the parking areas as our subject, are is our verb, and then always full and crowded is either the object or clause or adjective. Same here. We have they is our subject, are is our verb, and then our object or clause. And the same thing here. Subject, verb, object or clause, and here as well. Subject is your verb, object or clause is here, and then same with here. It is the subject, is the clause, and then we've got an adjective. It is the verb, not as a clause, sorry. Is the verb, and then we've got poor as the adjective. Okay, so I'll read one more out to you. Regarding the tennis coaches, that's step 1, comma, members reflected that, that's step 2. They are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members, that's step. Okay, so that's step 3. Now we get to step 4. And this is where step 4 gets a little tricky, okay? Sometimes the paper that they give you, the practice paper, the end of module assignment, sometimes step 3 is enough and you can put a full stop there and you're fine. That's all the information they give you. But depending on the information they gave you, you might have to do step 4. Sometimes you'll have to do step 4, sometimes not. That's why I'm kind of worried about giving you this paper, because I think if you look at this paper, you're going to think, oh, there's always going to be a step 4. Maybe, maybe not. It depends on the amount of information and the information they give you on the paper. Okay, so just be careful. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat myself to make sure you've heard that and you can remember it. Sometimes you might have to use step 4, sometimes not. It depends on the amount, which means how much information they gave you and what kind of information they gave you. All right, so be careful. So, and the reason I'm just worried because, you know, if you try to do this and you're looking at the paper and you're like, well, where's the information step 4? It may or may not be there. It just depends. Okay, so be careful. Sometimes steps 1 through 3 will be enough. Sometimes you'll need steps 1 through 4. Again, depends on the information they give you and how much. Right, so I'm going to stop talking about that and I'll just talk about step 4 now. So remember, problem is step 1, who and reported speech is step 2, more information about the problem is step 3, and now you need to explain why. You might need to give a reason for the problem and more information about the problem. So the reason is the why, which means why, the reason and the why can be written in 2 ways. You can write it with a subject, verb, object, clause, or adjective, or you can use a noun phrase to give the reason or the why. I should just say, I should do it like this. All right, so because you hear me saying the reason, but you don't see it written here. Okay, so this again, when you explain why or when you give the reason, you can write it in 2 different ways, using subject, verb, object, clause, adjective, or with a noun phrase. So if it's subject, verb, object, clause, or adjective, notice it's blue, green, gray. If it's a noun or noun phrase, I've highlighted it in yellow. So you notice most of these are using subject, verb, object, or clause, but the last one is yellow, so this one's a noun phrase. So let's look at them. Right, about the parking spaces, residents said that the parking areas are always full and crowded because the parking lots are limited. Okay, next one, regarding the tennis coaches, members reflected that they are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members since they lack proper training. As for the quality of drinks, comma, students reported that the tastes are not acceptable as the drinks sometimes taste too sour. Concerning the condition of changing rooms, comma, colleagues complain that it is too stuffy and sometimes smelly due to the fact that the ventilation system is often down. In terms of the environment, comma, customers pointed out that it is poor because of a lack of regular cleaning. All right, so that's step 1 through 4. Now let's talk about the differences between subject, verb, object, and noun phrase. And notice what it says here. Please note the difference between because and because of. All right, if you're going to use because, after the word because requires SV and maybe O. If you're going to use because of cannot be used with a verb after it. That's why with because of, you can only have a noun phrase or a noun. So that's why because of, you notice a lack of regular cleaning is a noun or noun phrase. Now you might think, oh, wait a minute, there's ing, cleaning, that looks like a verb to me. Remember, we talked about this. That is a gerund. It's a verb that ends with ing, but it's not acting like a verb. It's acting like a noun. And we've talked about noun phrases in the class before. I've given you papers and it explains that. So be careful. That is a noun phrase. It's not a verb. Okay, so that's because of. Because of requires a noun phrase, no verbs. But because requires a verb, it needs a subject and a verb, maybe an object. And you won't, so we've noticed, and that's why I put these in red, because I know a lot of students kind of mix up using because and because of, and it's the grammar that comes after it, that's why. All right, but there are other words that also require SVO. So notice here we use the word since, here we use the word as, and here we use the word that. It's because of those words that requires the SVO, okay? So again, I'll just repeat. Words like because, since, and as require SVO. So does the word that, because remember we talked about this earlier a few minutes ago. If you have the word that, sometimes you'll have a that clause, and a that clause requires the word that, and then SV, maybe O. So that's why all of these are SVO sentences, phrases with SVO. Okay. And then because of only requires a noun phrase. Now, notice this one, due to the fact that. Some students will use the phrase due to the fact that. Some students like to use the phrase due to. Okay. If you use due to the fact that, because of this word that, you're going to need SVO after it. But let's say you just use the word due to. Due to functions and does the same kind of job as because of. So if you're going to use just the two little words due to, then you're going to need a noun or noun phrase after due to. But if you say due to the fact that, because you say this whole thing due to the fact that, if you use, because it's got the word that, then you will have to have SVO. Okay, so be careful of those. All right, now we've talked about step 4, and remember I said step 4 is a bit tricky because sometimes on the paper, the reason or the why is actually given in step 3, more information about the problem, but sometimes not. So again, you have to just read the paper given to you carefully and decide if you only need to write step 1 through 3 and then skip to step 5, or if you are going to need step 4. Again, if this is too confusing for you, if you're like, I'm not sure, this worries you, then you don't have to use these sentence patterns. You can look at all my other practice papers with all the other sentence patterns and use one of those instead. You don't have to use these. These are just some suggestions for you to use. All right, so now we go on to step 5. They actually put 2 steps together. Step 5 is the solution plus the advantage of the solution. Personally, I think solution should be step 5 and this should be step 6, but they put them together as one step. Okay, that's remember, step 1 is the problem. Step 2 is who complained, the people, and then use reported speech. Step 3 is more information about the problem. Step 3 is why or the reason. And then, step 4 is why or the reason. And remember, you may or may not have to use this step. It depends on the information they give you. And then step 5 is the solution plus the advantage of the solution. Remember, the solution is given to you on the paper, and the advantage is not given to you. You have to add this idea. It is a requirement. You must add the advantage. It is nowhere on the paper. You have to add it. All right. So let's look at all put together. So this one is about the parking spaces. About the parking spaces, residents said that the parking areas are always full and crowded because the parking lots are limited. To solve the problem, it is suggested that we explore another site to accommodate more parking slots. That's the solution, so that residents would not have to wait for the parking. That's the advantage of the solution. All right, next, regarding the tennis coaches, members claim that they are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members since they lack proper training. It is advisable to invite human resources to organize a training workshop for the coaches to teach them proper deeds when serving members. That's the solution. By doing so, members and the coaches can maintain a better relationship. All right, that's the advantage of the solution. Next one. As for the quality of drinks, students reported that the tastes are not acceptable as the drinks sometimes taste too sour. To rectify the situation, it would be a good idea to sell canned drinks in order to standardize the quality of drinks, right? That's a solution which can fit the taste of different people as well. I'd honestly say, students, all of this is the advantage of the solution. Okay, so that's the advantage. So that's the first three. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is this one, in terms of the environment. So we've got that one down here, in terms of the environment. Now, it says this is step 6. This is only when you see this on the paper. When you see this on the paper, then you do step 6. But for all the other problems, this steps 1 through 5 is enough. So what if you're like, well, what is step 6? This is for when you see the / and the question mark, okay? So I'm going to repeat that, / question mark. You know I love talking about this in class all the time because it's super important. The / and question mark. And again, you can see it on the end of module assignment as well, okay? So I'll put it up here really quick. See right here, / question mark. So that's the kind of one that we're talking about right now. Okay, so let's go back to the other document I was using. Okay, so when you see the / and question mark, now you have to do more work. You have to do more writing because you have 2 solutions to talk about. So janitors clean the lobby, that's solution 1. Remind customers to keep the place clean, that's solution 2. Now, this does not mean you are recommending both solutions. That is not what you're doing here. What you're doing is you're letting your boss know that there are 2 solutions. You're telling your boss, okay, the company can do this, or the company can do this. Okay, so we can have janitors clean the lobby or remind customers to keep the place clean. Okay, your company will not do both. It will only do one of them. Do not choose which one to write about. You're like, oh, I like janitors clean the lobby. I think that one's a good one. And you only write about that one. No, that is not what the end of module assignment wants you to do. And I've never once told you in class to do that. I have always said that you need to talk about both of the solutions. All you need to do is present the information. You do not need to make a recommendation. You don't need to talk about them both and say, I think this one is best because. No, that is not what you need to do. So you're going to talk about solution 1, then you're going to add your own ideas. You're going to explain the advantage and disadvantage of those ideas. The advantage and disadvantage are your added ideas. Then you're going to talk about solution 2. When you talk about solution 2, you're going to introduce it with the word alternatively, because alternatively is a fancy way of saying or, O-R. You're going to say, or the company can remind customers to keep the place clean. That's solution 2. Then you need to discuss the advantage and disadvantage of this solution, of solution 2. And those are, the advantage and disadvantage are your added ideas. So that's what it says right here. You're going to talk about solution 1, give the advantage and disadvantage of solution 1. Then you're going to talk about solution 2, and you're going to give the advantage and disadvantage of solution 2. Again, remember the advantage and disadvantages are nowhere on the paper. You will not see them anywhere because these are ideas that you are required to add. All right, so I don't know if I sound angry or crazy to you when I'm talking to you about this, but it's just really super important. Just some students really make a big mistake and don't do this correctly, and it just really affects their grade. So I really hope you understand how important this is. All right, so here we go. Here's all of this paragraph. So here's all of this, and here's what it looks like as a paragraph, doing steps 1 through 6. So in terms of the environment, customers pointed out that it is poor because of a lack of regular cleaning. Immediate action should be taken to solve the problem. We suggest asking janitors to offer regular cleaning to the lobby. Okay, that's solution 1, so that the hygiene can be maintained. That's the advantage. Yet, so here comes the disadvantage, this would increase their workload. Another solution would be so they didn't use alternatively. Instead, they used the words, another solution would be to remind customers to keep the place clean. So this is solution 2. We have, this solution would not involve a lot of money. That's the advantage. However, the effectiveness may not be significant. That is the disadvantage. Okay, so that's how you would write a paragraph like this when you have to give the two solutions because you see the forward slash and question mark. All right, now the one thing I did highlight here is the word involve. Involve is similar to the word require. They're not equal. They're not 100% equal. I just don't have, or maybe I do. Maybe I have a symbol that shows not quite equal, but they're not equal, but they're similar. So I don't see any other symbol that I could possibly use here. And really, I don't want to waste your time with it. So just remember that involve is similar to require. They're not the same. They're not 100% the same. But involve is kind of like require. So if your solution requires more money, then that means it involves more money. And if it involves more money, or maybe it involves more time, or maybe it involves hiring more people, or it will, I don't know, involve, I don't know, building a new room or something. That's a lot, right? That's something that requires a lot. So therefore you would use this word involve. It's a verb. You're using it as a verb here. You can use this verb when talking about the disadvantage. But then we also have, I've added this to this paper, not involve. So if involve means require, then not involve means does not require. So if you said, oh, this will not involve a lot of money, you're saying it will not require a lot of money, or this will not involve a lot of time or people, then that means a lot of people or a lot of time is not required. And that's a good thing, because if it does not take a lot of time, money, or people, then that's a good thing, and therefore it's an advantage. So when you're talking about the disadvantage, a verb you can maybe use is involve. And when you're talking about the advantage, a verb you might be able to use is not involve. Okay, so there's my explanation for involve, using the word involve with the disadvantage or not involve with the advantage. All right, and that's my explanation of this paper, building your sentences. So remember, we've talked about some vocabulary, some negative adjectives, and other words that might be used with the problem. We talked about possible people that will be the people who are complaining. And we've talked about building sentences. This is just one way. Remember, I've given you tons of different sentence patterns in my other papers. And just remember, step 4 is a bit tricky because it depends on how much information they give you and what kind of information they give you on the end of module assignment if you're going to have to do step 4. And remember, if you are doing step 4, if you are going to give the why or the reason, remember, you can do it 2 ways. You can give the subject, verb, object clause, or you might just be able to use a noun or noun phrase. So remember which words require the subject, the SVO. Words that require SVO is because, since, as, and that. And if you use because of, all you need is a noun phrase then, okay? Or if you just use the 2 little words due to also just requires a noun phrase. But if you're going to say due to the fact that, because of the word that, then you're going to have SVO. All right, and then we've also talked about a way to possibly talk about when you have the 2 solutions, the advantage and disadvantage. So now we're going to continue with this talking about the advantage and disadvantage, how you write that paragraph. Now in another class, we already talked about that. And I'm going to show you that document. Should be here somewhere. Right here. Okay, so let me put it up on the screen. So I believe in our last class that we had together, I talked about this, okay? And again, I spend so much time talking about this, students. I hope you understand how important it is when you have to talk about solution 1 and solution 2, okay? So remember, you see that forward slash and the question mark. So when you see the forward slash and the question mark, you know that the words before the forward slash is solution 1, and the words after the forward slash is the solution 2, okay? So we talked about the different paragraphs from different practice papers talking about the 2 solutions where you see the forward slash and question mark, right? We did all this together and we highlighted the parts. Okay, and in this paper, you will notice that when you want to use alternatively to introduce solution 2, so I highlighted that blue. You'll see that in all of the paragraphs. And then I highlighted the advantage in yellow, disadvantages in green. You'll see all that. And then I used Remember, although, however, or but, we talked about those. Those are used to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage, and I put those in red. So you can see that here. Remember, we did talk about although, but, and however. Okay. And we also talked about their sentence patterns here. And I did send this to you as well. So we did it in class and I sent it to you in an email. The reason why I'm explaining this is because of the way I highlighted things. Alternatively in blue, advantages in yellow, disadvantage in green, although, however, but in red. Now, I don't expect you to memorize that because it's not like you're going to go highlighting your paper when you write it. That's not the requirement. Let me show you which paper we're going to talk about next. I believe this is it. No. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. Okay, let me put it up on the screen here. Is this one. The reason why I just talked about all those colors is because I use the same colors again. Whoops. Students, wait 1 minute. I apologize, guys. Here we go. The reason why I talked about all those colors from the other document is because I used them again here. So I highlighted everything the same color just to hopefully help your memory. So when you introduce the second solution, I highlighted it blue, I highlighted the advantages yellow, I highlighted disadvantages green, and words like however, although, however, but, or even nevertheless. Remember, nevertheless, you can only use with disadvantage. These are words that are used to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. I put them in red. Again, you do not need to highlight your answer. That's not why I'm telling you this. I'm just trying to show you that I've highlighted the same things, the same colors. So again, I'm hoping it will help your memory. That's why. Now, I did send this paper to you before, but it was not highlighted. This is the teacher copy where it's all highlighted. The copy that I sent you is, I'll show it to you really quickly. It's this one. So they look almost the same, but like I said, no highlighting stuff really. And then the answers here are missing. So we're going to go over all that right now. Okay, but this is the this is the student copy. And we're going to use this teacher copy and I'll send it to you tomorrow. Okay, so here we go. So it's about handling two suggestions. So remember, you need to elaborate, you need to add ideas, because that's what elaborate means, add ideas when you see that there are two suggestions. Remember, please, that sometimes you see the word suggestion, sometimes you see the word solution. They are the same thing. So if we go over to the end of module assignment, you see the word solution right here, and then you see the word suggestion here. Same thing, okay? So don't worry if you're confused, they're the same thing, okay? All right, so we're talking about when you see the / and the question mark, and you have to talk about the two solutions. Remember, what you have to say the two solutions, and you must give the advantage and disadvantage of each idea, of each solution. So you have to add these ideas. All right, so what would your paragraph look like? So here are some example problems and solutions. So the first problem is poor air quality. More information about it is flu peak season. And then the two solutions to fix this problem of poor air quality is open windows or purchase air purifiers. And remember, you must discuss the advantage and disadvantage of each. All right, so what would these ideas, because they're just ideas, they're not full sentences, it's just point form really. What would these ideas look like in a full paragraph? So this is what it would look like, okay? So it says, about the air quality, members said it was unsatisfactory, especially during flu peak season. So that's the problem, more information. To solve the problem, we may keep the windows open, that's solution one, so that the air circulation will be better. That's the advantage. However, the clubhouse will become noisy. That's the disadvantage of solution one. Another solution would be two. So here comes solution two, purchase air purifiers to ensure the air quality in the clubhouse. That's the advantage of solution two. Nevertheless, this would involve extra money for the purchase and installation of the purifiers. That's the disadvantage. Remember, nevertheless can only be used with the disadvantage. Also notice they used, oh, it's not this one. It's another disadvantage somewhere else. Okay. So that's all I want to say right now about that is just remember, nevertheless is only used with the disadvantage. All right, so now you'll notice that was number one, but now we still have number 2, 3, and 4. So it says here, now write about the other three problems and try to use words like although, however, but. Remember to give the relationship between advantage and disadvantage. You can also use nevertheless, but only with the disadvantage. It says use phrases to introduce the solution. You can use phrases provided in Unit 8, page 6 document, or from all the practice and sample papers I've given you. And when you are introducing solution 2, you can use the word alternatively. You can use on the other hand. Be careful with on the other hand, students. Sometimes I see students make mistakes and they say on the other side. That's not correct. We say on the other hand in English, okay? And you'll notice up here, when they talked about solution 2, they said another solution would be 2. You can use this too, or as well, when you start talking about solution 2. If you do, please remember, you're going to have to say another solution would be 2, and then you're going to need a verb after the word 2, no ing, ed, or s, because 2 plus that kind of verb is infinitive. And you'll have to choose a suitable verb. All right, because we don't have a lot of time, I'm just going to give you the answer and we're going to highlight things together. So for problem 2, it's slippery floor. More information is 2 accidents last month. Possible solutions, post warning signs, or part-time cleaning staff. All right, so let's see what that looks like. So here it is highlighted for you. It says our members reported that the floor of our clubhouse was slippery. In fact, there were 2 accidents last month. In response to the problem, we could post warning signs, that's solution 2, around the clubhouse. It is an immediate and an inexpensive solution. That's the advantage, but not every member would pay attention to it. Okay, when it says it's an immediate solution, that means a solution that you can do very quickly or something that you can implement very quickly. And then also it's inexpensive. And then notice, but not every member would pay attention to it, because sometimes people don't pay attention to signs, right? Because that's what we're talking about here, is putting up signs or posting warning signs. So, yeah, some people might not pay attention to them. Now we use the word alternatively. Remember to introduce solution 2. We may consider hiring or employing some part-time cleaning staff. All right, so here is solution 2. The floors will always be dry and clean. That's the advantage, but it will increase our monthly expenses. Okay, that's the disadvantage. Notice both times for both advantage, disadvantage, they use the word but to show the relationship between the two of them. Also, remember, you can use this phrase to introduce your solution. We may consider, if you're going to use that to introduce your solution, remember it's going to be we may consider and then with verb ing. Right, next. So that's problem 2. Problem 3 is unhygienic condition in the coffee shop. More information about that is cockroaches were found. Our 2 possible solutions or suggestions is insect killing spray or intensive cleaning of the coffee shop. All right, so we go down here. We've got also, it has been found that the condition in the coffee shop was unhygienic as cockroaches were found. To improve the situation, it is suggested that we use insect killing spray after business hours. If you want to include the words after business hours, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine. All right, so here is solution 1. Use insect killing spray. It is a cost-effective solution. That is the advantage, but the spray may leave a strange smell in the shop, or you could say, but the spray may leave an unpleasant smell in the shop. That's the disadvantage. They use the word but to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. Here they used on the other hand to introduce the solution 2. So you can say on the other hand, comma, we could carry out intensive cleaning of the coffee shop. That is the solution 2. And it says, although we may need to close down the shop for one day, that's the disadvantage, this solution can make sure that the environment is hygienic. That's the advantage. And here they use the word although to show the advantage, to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. One thing I haven't talked about yet, and I want to tell you right now, is please notice that they said use insect killing spray, and here they said carry out intensive cleaning. So why am I pointing that out to you? Here they use the verb use insect killing spray, or carry out intensive cleaning. So they use the verb carry out. Why am I talking about that? If you go back up to the paper up here, insect killing spray, they did not give you a verb, so you don't know what verb to use. So you're going to have to choose an appropriate verb. Same with intensive cleaning. They didn't give you a verb, so you're going to have to think of one. And in the paragraph, you saw that they used the word carry out. So please be careful, students. In the end of module assignment, you're going to have to ask yourself, did they give you a verb? Did they give you a verb right here? And here, no, they didn't, because they didn't even give you a solution. So you're going to have to think of your own solution. Same here. But here, did they give you a verb here in solution 1? Did they give you a verb here in solution 2? Because if they did not give you a verb, you're going to have to think of one and add an appropriate verb to your sentence. Okay, that's my point there. All right, so like notice this one here. Here they gave you a verb, post warning signs. So post is a verb. They gave you one, but here they didn't give you one, so you're going to have to add your own verb. All right, so last problem, problem 4, limited choice of fitness courses. That's the problem. More information is only 3 yoga classes per week. Then it says variety of fitness courses, survey with members. Now here, remember we were talking about verbs. What about here? They give you this up arrow. What does this mean? Remember we talked about this. We talked about this a long time ago in week 7, and I sent the document to you. This usually the up arrow means something like increase, enhance, or add, or improve. So we've got this, we're going to have to use some sort of word to show this. And then we have variety of fitness course and survey with members. Survey, be careful. This can be used easily as a noun or a verb. So let's see how they use these in sentences, and let's see what the whole paragraph would look like. All right, so we have finally some members reflected that our fitness courses were limited. There were only 3 yoga classes every week. To improve the situation, it might be a good idea. So here's solution 1. It might be a good idea to provide a greater variety of fitness courses, such as, so they're asked, maybe you want to add a few of your own ideas here. Then it says it can meet the needs of different members. That's the advantage, but we will need to hire extra instructors in a short time. That's the disadvantage. And they use the word but to show the relationship between the two, the advantage and disadvantage. Alternatively, so we're introducing solution 2 now. It is suggested we carry out a survey with members, okay, that's solution 2, to find out their preferences. That way you know what they want, the customers want, so you can give it to them. That's the advantage. However, this takes time and involves a lot of preparation work. All right, so that's the disadvantage. Notice that they use the word however to introduce the, show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. Remember we were talking about verbs, and I said let's see what they use to show this idea here, and how did they use survey. So let's look at them. Here they have a good idea to provide a greater variety. So that up arrow means greater variety of fitness courses. In different situations, it will mean different things. So here we have greater variety, okay? And then for the survey, remember I told you survey can be used as a noun or a verb. Here they used it as a noun because they used the verb carry out with the noun survey, okay? And the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is this right here, involves. Remember on that other document about 10 minutes ago, I was talking about involves, and notice how they used involves with the disadvantage. Involves a lot of preparation work. And remember in class last week, I talked about takes time. Something will take time, something will take money, something takes time and money. So this is another verb you can use when giving the disadvantage. All right, so there's that document. Now, our next document is, which document do we want to talk about next? Adding ideas. Okay, let's go to that document in 10 minutes. All right, in class, I want to say about 2 weeks ago in class, we did this exercise. We only did the first 2 just to get some practice. We had other practice in the class, so I thought maybe 2 more would be enough. All right, so this document is called Suggestions, Ideas, DEVS. All right, and, oh, I did it on this one. Okay, I will send this one to you with all the highlighted stuff that we're about to talk about. So there's actually 2 things going on this document. The first, on page 1, they're talking about making suggestions. So that's why it says making suggestions. And we did some practice, and I'll send the answer to you. Page 2 is about idea development. That's why it says IDDEV. DEV is development, idea development. So that's what we're going to talk about now is on page 2. So idea development is very similar to adding ideas. Okay, so I should have unhighlighted this part, so sorry about that. All right, so basically this is about adding ideas or adding elaboration. So let's read version A and version B. So It says, read the following two descriptions about a problem found in a housing estate and its solution. So A and B are saying the same ideas, but you will notice that B has more ideas, okay? And we'll talk about those. So version A, some residents complained that there were not enough recycling bins in this estate. Plastic bottles were thrown away as rubbish. To solve the problem, we should provide more recycling bins in our housing estate. There will be no more complaints. Okay, pretty basic, it's fine. But now compare it to version B. Some residents reported that there were not enough recycling bins in our estate. Some plastic bottles were thrown away as rubbish, which was not environmentally friendly. To address this issue, I would like to suggest providing more recycling bins near the entrance of each building. It will be very convenient for residents to put plastic bottles or used paper there. All right, so you'll notice that version B has more ideas added, and the added ideas are highlighted and underlined. Okay, but there's three different kind of ideas that are being added. That's why there's three different colors, and that's why I've lettered them A, B, and C. Okay, because that's what this document or page 2 is about, is idea development and adding different kinds of ideas. So here we have some plastic bottles were thrown away as rubbish, which was not environmentally friendly. So what is this idea, green idea, an example of? Okay, or idea A. This is an example of explaining the negative effect of the problem. Or if you want to be more specific, you're giving information about how the problem has affected the company or the customer, okay? Or explaining the negative effect of the problem on the company or customer. I guess that's the best specific way to explain it. So when things are highlighted in green, you're explaining the negative effect of the problem on the company or the customer. So that's what we see here. So plastic bottles were thrown away, and that's not environmentally friendly. Notice what I say here. When you start giving extra information about the problem, the negative effect, it's optional. You don't have to add this idea. If you want to, you can. It's optional. Then we have B. To address the issue, I would like to suggest providing more recycling bins near the entrance of each building. So what is this an example of? These are extra details about the solution. Remember, the solution is given to you on the paper, on the practice papers, and on the end of module assignment paper. But if you want to give some extra details about the solution and add extra details about the solution, you can. It's optional. You don't have to, but you can. Then we have C. It will be very convenient for residents to put plastic bottles or used paper there. Okay, what is C an example of? It is the advantage of the solution. The advantage is not optional. You must add your own idea. So when you add extra information about the problem and explain the negative effect, that's optional. If you want to give extra details about the solution that's given to you, that's optional. You must give the advantage of the solution. That is not optional, okay? So please understand that. All right, so we've talked about 3 different ways to add ideas to your paragraph. 2 of those ways are optional. One of them, adding the advantage to the solution, is not. All right, so, and we've talked about this here. So when describing problems and solutions, it would be helpful to give more explanation so the readers can have a better understanding. So you can explain in what ways the company or customer are affected due to the problem. So that's green, that's A. So all the green stuff is related. It's the same thing. All right, we've got, or when you are talking about the solution, you must give the advantage, or you can give more details about the solution. Okay, so now here are some examples. We're going to talk about the examples here. Okay, but first we need to read this information. You work in a large company that sells skincare products. You have started writing to your supervisor about some problems found in your company. Please continue writing the paragraphs by, try to explain the negative effect of the problem on the company or customer. Then you need to think of a solution for each problem and then add more ideas. Remember, elaborate means add ideas. So remember, you must give the advantage of the solution to the customer or company. I don't like how they say this because really it's the advantage of the solution. But obviously this advantage will have a positive effect on the company or customer. That you have to do this. You have to do step C. And then if you can, try to add some extra details about the solution. All right, again, we've only got 4 minutes, so I'm really sorry. I'm just going to read to you. All right, so the first problem. It was found that some new staff did not inform their supervisors when taking sick leave. So people are calling in sick, but they're not telling their bosses. More information about that, they just sent WhatsApp messages to colleagues. All right, so remember the green is explaining the negative effect of the problem on the company or customers. So you can say the staff are not following company procedures. So how do we fix that? What's the solution? To solve the problem, it is suggested that Human Resources Department hold briefing sessions for the new staff. That's the solution. So that they have a clear understanding of the procedures for sick leave. So this is in red and yellow, so you know that that is an example of C. That's the advantage of the solution. So remember, that's not optional. You have to add that. Okay? All right, so the next one, let's see. 2. The sales of our new skincare products were not satisfactory. That's the problem. More information about that because of the relatively high price. So your products aren't selling very well because your products are expensive. So remember, we've got green here, and green is an example of explaining the negative effect of the problem on the company or customers. So you can say, as a result, the company's profits decreased. Okay, what do we do to solve this problem? It may be necessary to launch a promotional campaign for these products. That's the solution, such as offering discounts. So now you're giving extra details about this promotional campaign. You're saying such as offering discounts. So this is highlighted in blue, so you know that this is an example of giving extra details about the solution. Then you can say, as a result. Ooh, they used as a result twice. Students, please don't do this. Please don't use as a result twice in a paragraph. As a result, this may attract more customers to buy our products. So remember the yellow and red, that's not optional. You have to add that idea. It's the advantage of the solution. All right, and the last one. Due to a lack of manpower, we could only provide hotline service from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. So that's the problem and more information about the problem. So then it says, it was inconvenient for customers as they could not help in the evening. They could not get help in the evening. So remember, the green stuff is an example of explaining the negative effect of the problem on the company or the customer, or both. Okay? A possible solution would be to hire part-time staff to answer calls at night. That's the solution. They can offer support until 9 p.m. every evening. All right, so now you're adding some ideas about the solution, because remember, words highlighted in blue, you are adding extra details to the solution. And then when they offer support until 9 p.m. every evening to provide better service to our customers. Remember, the red and yellow stuff is the advantage. That's not optional. You must add that. So that idea is an example of C, the advantage of the solution, which remember is not optional. You must add that idea. All right, students. So we've talked today about adding ideas to both the problem, the solution, and you must add the advantage. We've talked about building sentences, and we've talked about talking about the two solutions and giving the advantage and disadvantage. All right, so that is it. I hope you found that helpful. I'm going to talk about the same thing from 3:30 to 4:30. I'm going to use the same documents and talk about the same thing. I'll probably use the same words even. So if you want to go, you can. If you want to stick around for the last hour, you can if you'd like. If you are going to stay, please put your name and your course number again. And if you aren't going to stay, and if you're new, and if you're just showing up for the 3:30 practice, also please put your course name. Again, I'm going to take a little bit of a break because I'm teaching for like 4 hours. I've got other classes after this class that I'm going to teach in as well. So I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and let's say at 3:36 or 3:37. So at 3:36, I'll start the practice session. Okay, so I'm going to take a few minutes break here. Okay, but I'll be right back in about 5 minutes. All right, students, good afternoon. It's 3:36. I'm going to begin the 3:30 practice session. The reason why I didn't start at 3:30 is because I was teaching from 2:30 to 3:30 and I needed a little bit of a break. So for those of you, I see you joining, thank you for putting your name and your time and your student number. If you can, I'd really kind of prefer that you put your course number too. So I'll give you an example of that. Let's see. So if you check the chat box, you can see the example I'm putting up there. If you can please put your course number, that would be appreciated. The reason why I also request your course number is because these practice sessions are open to all of the classes that I teach, and I know all of you are in different classes, so that makes it easy for me to check your attendance here. I mean, and when I say check attendance, you don't have to come to these things, and thank you for putting your information up here. But it's just so that way I can, see from which class you guys came from. And if you're one of the students who is sticking around, maybe you already came to the 1:30 class, or maybe you came to the 2:30 extra practice class. Please put, if you're going to stay this next hour, please put your information. Again, putting your name is not enough. You also need to include your course number. So if you check the chat box, you'll notice that I've also included the course. So please include your course number. So if you're EG 114123 NC05 or whatever, please put that. Okay. Let's begin. We're going to start off with talking about building sentences. If you've been to my earlier practices, I'm doing and saying the same exact thing. So if you were here for the earlier hours, this isn't new, but maybe you want to just hear it again for extra practice. That's totally fine. So let me put it up here on the screen for you. This is what we're going to start with. Okay, so building your sentences. Okay, and they say that the goal or the target is not to make the sentence longer. Okay, which it's not. What you're trying to do is you want to include information that is clear and easy to understand, and with logical elaboration. Elaboration means you are adding ideas. Logical means that the information you add is suitable for the situation. All right, so before we start really getting into building the sentences, we're going to talk about some basic information that is included that you'll want to think about. First is possible vocabulary for the problems. You'll notice that in all the practice papers and in the end of module assignment paper, they give you some adjectives before the nouns because that's part of the problem. Actually, let me check really quick. What did they use here? Yeah, they have an adjective in front is the very first word for all the problems on the end of module assignment. So some possible words that you can see, whoops, wrong paper. Some possible negative adjectives or other words that might be used to show that there's a problem. We've got inadequate, which is an adjective, not ample is an adjective. Then you have a lack of. Lack is being used as a noun here. You know it's a noun because it's got a in front of it and of after it. So therefore you know that lack is being used as a noun. If you go over here though, you also see the word lack, but now it's you can also use it as a verb. All right, then we've got the word filthy, which means really dirty. You've got bad attitude, so that's an adjective plus a noun. They're used together. Bad is the adjective. Slippery means when something satisfactory, another adjective. What's going on here? It just kicked me off my screen, students. I don't know what's going on. Oh, wait a minute. It says I've got poor quality network, which is not the case. That's not true, students. I don't know what's going on. Give me just a second. I don't know if it's because I've been on Microsoft Teams for the past 2 hours, if it's like creating a problem, but anyway, let's continue. All right, so hopefully you can see the screen. I'm going to put it back up. I think you can see it, but I'm going to re-put it up here again just to make sure we didn't get kicked off. Okay, All right, we talked about unsatisfactory. Then we've got poor quality or poor condition. So again, that's an adjective being used with the noun. Poor being the, poor is being used with the adjective with the different nouns. Okay, and obviously the adjective is going to go first. So let me see here. Okay, and again, poor doesn't mean like you don't have any money. Poor here means like not enough or not of good quality or not in good condition. All right, unhygienic. We've talked about hygienic before in a PowerPoint and with vocabulary review and a review of the format of the assessment. And I actually sent that last week. And the word was hygienic. Hygienic means clean. So unhygienic means not clean. We've got disorganized. We've got crowded. Again, in that PowerPoint I sent you last week with the vocabulary review, we talked about this. We talked about the word overcrowded. And this one's just crowded. We have expensive or costly, so that's something that requires a lot of money. We've got insufficient. We've talked about the verb lack. We've got dirty. We've got impolite. Another word would be rude. We've got mistakes, but this mistakes is a noun. We've got polluted and complicated. If something is complicated, it's not easy. If it's complicated, it is very difficult. All right, so these are some of the vocabulary words that can possibly be used with the problems. Some of the adjectives mainly that will be used with the problems. All right, after that, you see this like table here of types of people, and it says respondents, but really it's people, because people are going to complain, okay, in the situation, in all the practice papers, situations, and in the end of module assignment. You're going to have a group of people that complained. So who are these group of people? What words might you see? All right, if you belong to a fitness club, if you belong to the club, then you are a member. A lot of you are engineering students or architecture students, so if you belong to the engineering society, then you're a member of the society, because society is like a group, so you're a member of the group. Or maybe the situation is about a school, so maybe the students complained, okay? Or maybe if the situation about the school is about the school, the teachers complained. Or if the situation is about a hospital, maybe the doctors or nurses complained. So in the situation, you might see some sort of job title, and that will be the group of people who complained. Maybe the residents complained. So if people are complaining about a housing estate. So again, if you live at ABC Housing Estate, then you are a resident of ABC Housing Estate. Maybe the clients or customers of a company complained. Remember, these are groups of people who may have complained. Or if maybe the staff or employees complained, or the colleagues. The colleagues are the people you work with. Or if we're at a hotel, because the customer is at a hotel, the people who pay money to stay at a hotel, those are called guests. Maybe the guest complained. Or I know in a practice paper, I think last week's practice paper, it was about an airplane. So people who buy the airplane tickets to use the airplane, those people are passengers. People who ride on the MTR, those are passengers. People who ride on buses, those are passengers. So if they complain, do you call them passengers? Or visitors, what do visitors do? They visit places. So if you visit a museum or if you visit a park, you would call them visitors. Maybe they complained. Or if you participate in an activity, if you join an activity and you participate in it, you're a participant. Maybe they complained. All right, so these are the possible people who could possibly have complained. And then remember, we've also talked about some negative adjectives you might see. All right, now that we've got that done and out of the way with, now we can start putting our sentence together. Now, just so you know, students, there are lots and lots and lots of ways to write your sentence. I've given sentences, I should say, and lots of different ways to write your paragraph. What do I want to say about that? I've given you many practice papers and sample answers, and on those sample answers, I've given you lots of different sentence patterns. So don't think that you have to do just this way. There's many different ways. This is just one way to write your sentence in your paragraph, okay? And I would actually prefer that you use a different way. I would not like that you write all of your paragraphs using these steps, because that's just a little boring. Okay, so next, students, again, I noticed that you're putting your names in here. Thank you in the chat box. And some of you are just putting NC01 or whatever. The thing is, you need to tell me if you're EG 123 or 124. Okay, I need that as well, because You need to put the full course name, please. Next. Give me just a second, students. Let me continue now. Sorry. Where was I? Here we are. I'm very sorry. Okay, what I was saying was I've given you many different sentence patterns. So these are just one way to write your sentences. And again, it's best to have variety. So I would suggest if you want to use all these sentence patterns, the ones right here on this document, maybe use them for 1 or 2 sentences or 1 or 2 paragraphs, but not all of your paragraphs. But if you're super weak in English and you think this is super easy to understand and you want to do that for all of them, then okay. When I say super weak, I'm not trying to be mean, but if English is very difficult for you, or if you make D's and F's, then maybe, and you're very comfortable and confident using these sentence patterns, then okay. All right, let's begin now. So remember, you first want to start your paragraph talking about the problem. Problem is the first thing you're going to talk about. So this is one way you can start your sentence in your paragraph. You're going to use the word about, regarding, as for, concerning, or in terms of. After these words, then you're going to actually say the problem in a noun phrase. So the parking spaces, the tennis coaches, the quality of drinks, the condition of changing rooms, or the environment. After you say the problem, then you're going to need a comma, okay? Because in this group of words, there's no subject or verb, so you can't put a full stop. It's not a complete thought in English, so you're going to need the comma here. Okay, so that's step 1, the problem. Step 2, after you say the problem, you want to say, step 2 is you want to say who complained and use reported speech. So when we talk about who complained, we're talking about people. So remember this group of words up here. These are all the possible people who complained. So that's what they're talking about here when they say who. So you can see residents, members, students, colleagues, or customers. And then after the people who complained, then you're going to use reported speech. Reported speech is when you tell your boss what the customer said when they complained. That is reported speech. So here we have said that, reflected that, reported that, complained that, or pointed out that. Those are all examples of reported speech. Notice when you use reported speech, you need the word that, okay? And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Notice the other thing about reported speech, the verb said is in past tense. It's not say, it's said. Reflected is past tense. Reported is past tense. Complained is past tense. And pointed out is past tense. And then you've got the word that. So each of them has the word that. What that means is you've got a that clause. What is a that clause? A that clause is a group of words that starts with the word that, and then it needs to have a subject and a verb and maybe an object. Okay? So you'll see here, though, we only have the word that. So the subject and verb needs to come after it. So we're going to see that here in step 3. All right, so remember, step 1 is the problem. Step 2, you want to say who complained, the people. Then you're going to use reported speech. And then step 3 is you're going to give more information about the problem. Again, this is just one of many ways of how to write your sentence. So here we have about the parking spaces, comma, that's step 1. Residents, that's who said that, that's reported speech. So all of this is step 2. The parking areas are always full and crowded. That's step 3. All right, then it says regarding the tennis coaches, comma, members reflected that, step 2. They are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members. That's step 3. All right, so remember I told you after the word that, all of these have the word that. So you're going to have a that clause. So you're going to need a subject and a verb after the word that and maybe an object. So right here, after the word that, we have the parking areas is our subject. The word are is our verb. And then always full and crowded is the clause or the object. Here, after the word that, we have the word they. That's our subject. Are is our verb. Often not punctual and disrespectful to the members. That is the clause or object. And we've got it here too. The taste is the subject. Are is the verb. Not acceptable is the object, clause, or adjective. You can have object, clause, or adjective basically. It is the subject after that. Is the verb. Too stuffy and sometimes smelly is your object, clause, or adjective. And here we have it is the subject. Is the verb. And poor is the adjective. Okay, so problem, step 1, who, reported speech is step 2, more information about the problem is step 3. All right, next, after that we have step 4, okay? So step 4 is basically the why or the reason, okay? And there's 2 ways to talk about the why or the reason. You can either talk about the subject and verb object clause, so basic SVO that you're probably familiar with. That's one way to talk about the why or the reason. The other way to talk about the why or the reason is to include a noun phrase, okay? So notice that the subject verb object clause, that is in blue, green, and gray. And if it's a noun phrase, then it's going to be in yellow, like down here. You'll notice all the other ones, the blue, green, gray, we've got that here, here, and here, and here, okay? All right, so remember, after the problem, you talk about the people who complained, reported speech, then you give more information about the problem, and then you can include the why or the reason, okay? And you have 2 ways to talk about that. So here are the examples. About the parking spaces, comma, residents said that the parking areas are always full and crowded because the parking lots are limited. Or we have, regarding the tennis coaches, comma, members reflected that they are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members since they lack proper training. We've got another one. As for the quality of drinks, comma, students reported that the tastes are not acceptable as the drinks sometimes taste too sour. Concerning the condition of the changing rooms, colleagues complained that it is too stuffy and sometimes smelly due to the fact that the ventilation system is often down. Okay, or often down means often not working. And then in terms of the environment, comma, customers pointed out that it is poor because of a lack of regular cleaning. Okay, so first thing you will notice, it says here, please note that the difference between because and because of. Because I've noticed that a lot of students sometimes mix up the difference. They're not really sure what's the difference between because and because of. It's the grammar they require. Because of requires SV, maybe O. Because of cannot have a verb. If you use because of, it requires a noun or a noun phrase. And remember, noun or noun phrase is highlighted in yellow, so you see that right here. Okay, now you might be going, wait a minute, a lack of regular cleaning, that's not a noun phrase. I see a verb right here, ing. No, cleaning is not a verb. It looks like a verb because it has ing, but it's actually a gerund, G-E-R-U-N-D. And in our past few classes, and actually a lot of times, we've talked about noun phrases and gerunds, and I've given you what the word means. So this is cleaning is a gerund. This is a noun phrase, and a noun phrase can't have a verb. And yeah, gerunds look like verbs, but they're not acting like a verb. Okay. So again, I repeat, that's the difference between because and because of. Because requires subject verb after it, maybe object. Because of requires a noun or noun phrase. And that's why I put them in red, just to kind of highlight them so you can see the difference. One's because of. You'll also notice that not only because, but all these other words also require SV or SVO. So what are they? So we've got because requires SVO. So does the word since, and so does the word as. So all 3 of those, because, since, and as, require subject, verb, maybe object. And then this one also has subject, verb, object. Why? Because of the word that is right here. Remember what we said about that word. That means you've got a that clause. Now, not every time you have the word that do you have a that clause, but in these situations, yes. So remember, with the word that, when you have a that clause, it requires a subject and verb, maybe object. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is, so we've talked about because, since, and as, and that require SVO, and then I told you because of requires a noun phrase. Now I want to talk to you really quickly about due to the fact that. Some students will write the phrase due to the fact that, and because there's the word that's a that clause, so you need SVO. But some students like to use the word due to. Due to, if you use due to, just those 2 little words, then it's going to be like because of. You're going to need a noun or noun phrase after it. So I'm just going to repeat it. If you're going to use due to, then you need a noun or noun phrase. If you're going to say due to the fact that, then you need SVO. Okay, so just be careful of that. The other thing I want to tell you is at the beginning, you might remember that I said that step 4 is a little bit tricky. Depending on the amount, that means how much, depending on how much information they gave you and what kind of information they gave you on the paper, You might just need to do steps 1, 2, and 3, and then skip down to step 5. Maybe, maybe not. But then maybe sometimes they gave you, again, the way they wrote the information on the end of module assignment, maybe you will be able to have step 4. It really just depends, students. So be very careful about step 4. You may have to use it, you may not. You always have to include the problem and more information about the problem. But the way that they talk about more information about the problem, sometimes more information about the problem is the reason, sometimes not. So again, you're just going to have to read the paper carefully, make sure you understand it, so that way you make sure that you include all the right information and you talk about it in the correct way. If that scares you, what I just said, if that bothers you and you're like, oh, well, I don't want to make a mistake or mess up, you don't have to use these sentence patterns. There are other ways to write the sentences. Again, look at all the practice papers and sample answers I've given you. I've given you lots of sentence patterns. All right, that's what I'm going to say about step 4. Now we're going to go to step 5. Remember, step 1 is the problem. Then you can talk about who complained in the reported speech. Then you're going to say more information about the problem. We just finished talking about step 4, which is why, which is the reason. Now they've put personally, I think the solution is one step, and I think giving the benefit or the advantage is a separate step, but they've put them together. So for step 5, they are talking about the solution and the advantage of the solution. Remember, the solution is given to you on the paper. When I say the paper, I mean the end of module assignment paper. But what is not given to you is the advantage. They do not include this on the paper. You must add your own idea. Okay? All right, so what do we have here? We have about the parking spaces. Residents said that the parking areas are always full and crowded because the parking lots are limited. To solve this problem, it is suggested that we explore another site to accommodate more parking slots. That's the solution, so that residents would not have to wait for the parking. That's the advantage of the solution. Okay, so you need to explain why the solution is good, and that's an added idea. All right, next one, regarding the tennis coaches, members complain that they are often not punctual and disrespectful to the members since they lack proper training. It is advisable to invite Human Resources Department to organize a training workshop to the coaches to teach them proper deeds when serving members. That is the solution. And what is the advantage? By doing so, members and the coaches can maintain a better relationship. All right, that's the advantage. Next one, as for the quality of drinks, students reported that the tastes are not acceptable as the drinks sometimes taste too sour. So that's steps 1 through 4. To rectify the situation, it would be a good idea to sell canned drinks. This is part of step 5. This is the solution. And then in order to standardize the quality of drinks, which can fit the taste of different people as well. All right, so that is the advantage of the solution. So all of this is step 5, solution plus advantage. All right. Now it gets down here and it says step 6. Step 6 is not for all of the problems. You only use step 6 when you see the 2 disadvantages, okay? So I'm sorry, not the 2 disadvantages, the 2 solutions. How do you know there are 2 solutions? Remember, you have to look for that forward slash and the question mark. When you see the forward slash and the question mark, you know there's 2 solutions. Solution 1. Janitors clean the lobby is solution 1. Remind customers to keep the place clean, that's solution 2. Okay. Remember, you do not choose which one to talk about. You have to write about solution 1 and solution 2. Okay. You must say both of them. You must write about both of them. Do not just choose one. That's not part of the test. And I've never said to do that in class. That's not what I've taught you to do. But you must talk about both of them. You must talk about solution 1 and solution 2. And you must give the advantage and disadvantage about solution 1. And you must give the advantage and disadvantage of solution 2. Remember, the advantage and disadvantage are not on the paper. They are added ideas that you must add. Also, when you start introducing solution 2, you're going to use a word like another solution would be to, or you could say alternatively. Do not use the word and do not use the word also. The company will decide what it wants to do. The company will decide, oh, should we do solution 1, or oh, we're going to do solution 2. The company decides. You do not decide for the company. And also, you don't use the word and because the company will only do one of the solutions. The company will do this, or the company will do this. Okay. And notice I use the word or. That's why you don't use the word and or also when talking about these 2 solutions. All right. Again, I just talk about this a lot because I see every year some students make mistakes, and that's not good. All right, so step 6 is really only for when you see the two solutions, when you see the / and question mark. So that is this one that we're talking about here. In terms of the environment, we're talking about this sentence here. So we've included more information now. So it says, in terms of the environment, comma, customers pointed out that it is poor because of a lack of regular cleaning. Immediate action should be taken to solve the problem. We suggest asking janitors to offer regular cleaning to the lobby. That's the solution, so that the hygiene can be maintained. That's the advantage. Yet this would increase their workload. That's the disadvantage. Another solution would be to remind customers to keep the place clean. That's solution 2. This solution would not involve a lot of money. This is the advantage. However, the effectiveness may not be significant. That's the disadvantage. Okay, and let me just highlight that. I need to highlight this. Okay, so students, this solution would not involve a lot of money is the advantage. However, the effectiveness may not be significant is the disadvantage. All right, the reason why I have involve highlighted and then not involve highlighted, I want to talk about that really quickly. Involve is like the word require. They're not 100% the same in English, but they are similar, okay? So if something is involved, that means it's required. So if it involves a lot of money, if it involves a lot of time, then that means a lot of money or a lot of time is required. And usually that's considered a bad thing, so that's a disadvantage. Okay, so when you write about the disadvantage, if you want to use the verb involve, you can. Or sometimes you might want to use require. Require is a good verb too. But that's how involve is being used here. In this sentence, this solution would not involve a lot of money. So if involve means require, or very similar to it, then not involve means not require. So this is saying this would not involve a lot of money. So you're saying this would not require a lot of money. If something does not take a lot of money or does not require or involve a lot of money, that's a good thing. So that's an advantage. So I'm just bringing this up to you to notice that when you talk about the advantage, you can use the verb not involve. But if you're talking about the disadvantage, then you can possibly use the word involve. Do you have to use these words? No, there's many other words you can use, but I just want to explain to you that that's how they work, okay? All right, so we just finished talking about the paragraph where if you have the / and the question mark, you have the two solutions and you must talk about them, okay? And talk about the advantage and disadvantage. And basically, we've just talked about how to build up your sentence and include all the information that you need to include. All right, and we've also talked about the people who might complain and some possible negative adjectives or other words you can use to talk about the problem. And then, I know I already said this, but just to remind you, is we just talked, the last paragraph that we talked about is when you have to talk about the two solutions. How do you know you're going to talk about two solutions? Because the / and the question mark. So that's what we're actually going to talk about next. There is a whole document talking about how to talk about the two solutions. If you remember from class last week, I actually made a worksheet about this, and it looks like this. Okay, so we talked about it already in class. Students, for those of you who joined the meeting, make sure that you put your name and information in the chat box. So this is the paper we talked about in last week's class, talking about the two solutions, okay? When you introduce solution 2, you want to use some sort of word to introduce it. So I've used the word alternatively. We highlighted the advantages in yellow, disadvantages in green, and then we also talked about although, however, and but. So remember, if you remember from class last week, we talked about although, however, and but. I said what they mean, and I also showed you the kind of the sentence pattern for them. But please also remember that nevertheless, you can use nevertheless also to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage, but please just remember that nevertheless can only be used with the disadvantage. Okay, but although, however, and but can be used with the advantage or the disadvantage. It doesn't matter. They go with both of them. Okay, so We talked about this already, talking about the two solutions, remember? And again, how do you know it's two solutions? When you see the forward slash and the question mark, you've got solution 1, solution 2. So early bird enrollment discount is solution 1, but coupons to participants is solution 2. And you will notice that I do talk about them, both of them, early bird enrollment discount and coupons. You have to talk about the two solutions. Do not choose the one you like or you think is best and only talk about that one. That is not what this test is about, and the module assignment is about. And I've never taught you to do that. I've taught you that you have to write about both of them. All right, so here's another document talking about two solutions. Let me get that up here. I'm going to show you the student version first. This is the one that I think I've already sent you. So it looks kind of like this, okay? And then you'll notice that there's some blank marks here. So there's some blank boxes because you don't have the answers. So we're going to talk about the answers now. And that's the teacher copy. So we'll talk about that. Somewhere it should be here. Here we go. Okay, so here we go. Handling two suggestions. So again, it says you need to elaborate. What does elaborate mean? It means to add ideas. So you need to add ideas when you see the two suggestions. And so we have solution 1, then we have the forward slash. After the forward slash, we have solution 2, and then the question mark. So remember that forward slash and question mark is very important. When you see those, you know there's solution 1 and solution 2. So if you go over to the end of module assignment, again, I cannot stress to you how important this is, students. You'll see it right here. So here's solution 1, forward slash right here, solution 2, and stop it. And then the question mark. Okay, so you know that this is the special one with the two solutions. All right, now let's go back to the other document. Okay, here it is. So this is the highlighted teacher copy. Again, I haven't sent this to you yet. So tomorrow I will be sending about 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 documents to you. This will be one of them. So remember, you need to add ideas when you see the two solutions, when you see the forward slash and question mark. All right, so for the first one, we've got 4 problems. We've got 4 problems and we've got their solutions, the two solutions. So the first one is poor air quality. That's the problem. Flu peak season is more information about the problem. And then what are the possible solutions? Well, we can open windows or we can purchase air purifiers. Okay, those are the two solutions. Remember, you need to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of solution 1 and solution 2, and you must add these ideas. Okay, all right, so what does all this look like? What do these ideas look like in sentences and in a paragraph? So we go down here. It says, about the air quality, members said it was unsatisfactory, especially during flu peak season. To solve the problem, we may keep the windows open, right? So we may keep the windows open is the solution so that air circulation will be better. That's the advantage. However, the clubhouse will become noisy, all right? So the clubhouse will become noisy is the disadvantage, however, is used to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. Another solution would be to, here comes solution 2, purchase air purifiers. Solution 2. The advantage is to ensure the air quality in the clubhouse. Nevertheless, this would involve extra money for the purchase and installation of the purifiers. Okay, so that's the disadvantage. Please remember that nevertheless can only be used with the disadvantage. And also notice here, remember on that last paper I talked about, you use involve with the disadvantage. So yeah, here's another example of the word involve being used with the disadvantage. Okay. Another thing is you'll notice here it says open the windows or purchase air purifiers. They were very nice. They gave you the verbs. So you open is a verb and purchase is a verb. Same here. It says post warning signs. Post is a verb. So they're giving you a verb. But here, part-time cleaning staff, they don't give you the verb. So you're going to have to think of a verb that you need to add. Okay. And then look at this one, insect killing spray. They don't give you a verb. So you're going to have to add a verb here. And then intensive cleaning of the coffee shop. Again, they don't give a verb to you. So you're going to have to think of a verb to include in your sentence. So just be careful, students. Sometimes they will give you verbs like here and here. Sometimes they don't give you verbs, and if they don't, you have to add one. So just be careful of that. All right, so we talked about problem 1 and the solutions. Let's talk about problem 2. Problem 2 is a slippery floor. More information about that is 2 accidents last month. Possible solutions. Solution 1 is post warning signs. Alternatively, solution 2, part-time cleaning staff. Okay, let's look at what these ideas look like in a full paragraph. So we're going to go down here. Okay, it says our members reported that the floor of our clubhouse was slippery. That's the problem. In fact, there were 2 accidents last month. That's more information. In response to the problem, we could post warning signs around the clubhouse. All right, so this is the solution, and you're adding around the clubhouse is just a little bit of extra detail about the solution. And then it says it is an immediate and inexpensive solution. That's the advantage, but not every member would pay attention to it. That's the disadvantage. So when they say it's an immediate solution, that means something you can do right now. It's very easy and fast to fix the problem. And it's also inexpensive. That's the advantage. But not every member would pay attention to it, because sometimes, when you post a warning sign or when you post any kind of sign, the disadvantage is some people won't pay attention to it. They won't notice it. They won't focus on it. Okay. And they use the word but to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. Okay, then we have alternatively to introduce solution 2. So alternatively, we may consider hiring or employing some part-time cleaning staff. That's solution 2 here. The floors will always be dry and clean. That's the advantage, but it will increase our monthly expenses. That's the disadvantage. And again, they use but to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. All right, what I didn't do is, students, I went from here and then I just jumped down here and started reading the next paragraph. So let me go back and explain a few things. It says, now they write about the 3 other problems. Okay, I'm not asking you to write because we've got limited time, so I'm just reading the answer to you. I hope you don't mind. It says, try to use the words although, however, or to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. It also says, use phrases to introduce the solution. You can use words provided in Unit 8, page 6 document, or you can use all the practice papers and sample answers given to you, because I've given you lots of sentence patterns there to introduce the solution. And then use the word alternatively or on the other hand when introducing solution 2. So when you introduce solution 2, you can use alternatively or on the other hand. Be careful. I've noticed some students in the past, they make this mistake. They say on the other side. We don't say on the other side. We say on the other hand. So be careful of that. Another way to introduce solution 2 is this phrase here. Another solution would be to. If you're going to use this phrase, another solution would be to. You need to use it with a verb. Okay. Notice this verb is purchased. There's no ing, ed, or s because you have to in front of it, and that's infinitive. Again, just like I was saying up here, sometimes they give you a verb, sometimes they do not. So if they don't give you the verb, you're going to have to choose the appropriate verb to put into your sentence. All right, so that's what we're doing. So basically, we're doing the same thing for all the paragraphs, for this one, and then the next one. So that we've discussed 1 and 2. We've talked about these 2. Now we're going to talk about this third one here, problem 3. 1 second, students, I'm sorry. Sorry. I need some water. So here we go. Problem 3 is unhygienic condition in the coffee shop. More information about that is cockroaches found. All right, there's 2 possible solutions to fix this problem. We've got insect killing spray or intensive cleaning of the coffee shop. Okay, those are our 2 solutions. Notice here, they did not give us a verb. They didn't give us a verb here or here. So let's see which verbs they used with these 2 solutions, okay? So we'll have a look. Okay, we've got problem 3 here. Also, it has been found that the condition in the coffee shop was unhygienic as cockroaches were found. To improve the situation, it is suggested that we use insect killing spray, that's solution 1, after business hours. So students, right here, this is some extra detail you can add to your solution if you want to. The advantage is it is a cost-effective solution, so it's not expensive, that's the advantage, but the spray may leave a strange smell in the shop, or you could say the spray may leave an unpleasant smell in the shop. That's the disadvantage. And they use the word but to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. On the other hand, remember it's on the other hand, not the other side. On the other hand, we could carry out intensive cleaning of the coffee shop. Okay, so that's solution 2. Although we may need to close down the shop for one day, so this is the disadvantage, this solution could make sure that the environment is hygienic. That's the advantage. This is a disadvantage because if you close the shop down for one day, you're going to lose business, right? You're going to lose money. But it will make sure that the shop is clean, right? That's the advantage. They use the word although to show the relationship between the disadvantage and the advantage. Now, remember I told you up here that they didn't give you a verb, right? Insect killing spray, intensive cleaning of the coffee shop. So what verbs did they use? Let's see. Here they used use insect killing spray, so the verb was use. Here it said carry out intensive cleaning, so they used the word carry out. Okay. So again, just remember they may or may not give you verbs, okay, about the solution. So again, if you take a look at the end of module assignment, have a look over here. Did they give you the verbs? Did they include verbs here for you? Did they include verbs over here for you? Remember there's 2. Did they give you a verb here? Did they give you a verb here? You should ask yourself, okay? Because if they didn't, you're going to have to add one. And of course, like I said, here, here, and here, you have to add the whole entire solution, okay? All right, so let's go back to this paper. All right. Is there anything else I want to say about that? No. All right, we're ready for problem 4. Okay, so here is limited choices of fitness courses. That's a problem. E.g., only 3 yoga classes per week. Notice I use the word per week, or only 3 yoga classes in a week, something like that. That's more information. Then we've got variety of fitness courses and survey with members. Okay, so I was talking to you about verbs. Survey can be used as a noun or a verb, so let's see how that's used in the sentence. Now here we have this up arrow. The up arrow can mean more, add more, enhance, improve, increase. So let's see how they used this arrow in the sentence with variety of fitness courses. Okay, because these are the 2 solutions. Let's see. It says, finally, some members reflected that our fitness courses were limited. There were only 3 yoga classes every week. To improve the situation, it might be a good idea to provide a greater variety of fitness courses such as XXX. Okay, so that's solution 1. And look, they're even adding some extra details. You can add some extra details to the solution by maybe giving some more examples. Okay, it can meet the needs of the different members. Okay, that's the advantage, but we will need to hire extra instructors in a short time. That's the disadvantage. And they use the word but to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. Alternatively, it is suggested we carry out a survey with members. That's the solution, to find out their preferences. That's the advantage. However, this takes time and involves a lot of preparation work. That's the disadvantage. So here they use the word however to show the relationship between the advantage and disadvantage. Also remember, notice again the verb they used. They used involve to talk about the disadvantage, and they also said takes as a verb to talk about the disadvantage. Because remember in last week's class I said if something takes time or something takes money, or you can put them together and say it takes time and money. You can use that phrase to talk about the disadvantage. And like I've said, you can also use the verb involves to give the disadvantage, or you can say not involve to give the advantage. Okay, and then remember we talked about this. We talked about the verbs. I'm like, let's see how they turn this into a word, how they turn this into a sentence, and what verb did they use here. So let's see. So for that arrow, it said a greater variety. Okay, so that's how they changed that into a word. They changed this in this right here, greater variety. So they use the words greater variety. And then for the survey, they used it like a noun, and they added the verb carry out. So they added this word. And there's one other thing I wanted to say about this. Carry out was the verb they added. Oh, yes. The other thing is like right here, such as da da da. Remember, the solution is it might be a good idea to provide a greater variety of fitness courses. And then here they tried to add some ideas, such as, and then you could add your own idea, like such as some fitness dance classes, such as some kung fu classes, such as group weightlifting classes or something. So if you want to add some ideas and a little bit of extra detail about the solution, you can. And they did that here as well. They added a little bit of extra detail about the solution. You don't have to do it, but you can. And they did that here too. A little bit of extra details about the solution. Now you always have to give the advantage and disadvantage. Those ideas you have to add, but if you want to add little things like this, you can do that as well. That's what we're actually going to talk about next in our next document. All right, so that is, it's not building your sentence. It's this one here. Okay. Now we have this other document that we're going to talk about in 8 minutes. All right, this document, if you look at the top, it says suggestion ideas DVSS. All right, the copy, if I sent it to you, the copy that you have does not have anything highlighted and it doesn't have any answers. So again, I'll send this to you tomorrow with highlights and with the answers. Okay, there's two things you're doing on this document. On page 1, you're practicing making suggestions. That's page 1. That's why it says suggestions up here. And we did a few of these in class when we were learning about writing suggestions and solutions. I think we did 1 and 2 because we had other practice that we did in the document 8. So we just did a few here. All right. Page 2 is about idea development and adding ideas. So that's why it says IDDEV, idea DEV, because the DEV stands for development. So idea development, adding ideas. So here we go. That's what we're focusing on, adding ideas. So read the following 2 descriptions about a problem found in a housing estate and its solution. So let's compare these two. They're kind of saying the same thing, but this one you will notice has more added ideas. So version 1, some residents complained that there were not enough recycling bins in the estate. Plastic bottles were thrown away as rubbish. To solve the problem, we should provide more recycling bins in our housing estate. There will be no more complaints. Okay, let's compare it to version B. Some residents reported that there were not enough recycling bins in our estate. Some plastic bottles were thrown away as rubbish, which was not environmentally friendly. To address the issue, I would like to suggest providing more recycling bins near the entrance of each building. It will be very convenient for residents to put plastic bottles or used paper there. All right, so I said that this one has more added ideas. Okay, so let's talk about them. We've got an idea added here in green, and that's A. We've got an idea added in blue, that's B. And then we've got an idea added here in red and yellow. It's red and yellow because it's super important, and that is C. Let's talk about these. So it says underline the elaborations or the added ideas, which I've underlined for you in version B, which are not in A. So what kind of information is given in each of them? All right, so A, the green stuff here is explaining the negative effect of the problem, the negative effect of the problem on the company or the customer. This is a way to add an idea if you want to, because that's what we're talking about, adding ideas. But do you have to do it? No, you don't have to add this idea. It's optional, which means you can. And if you can, great, go ahead and do so. But if you don't want to, it's your choice. Okay, then we have this idea in blue here, B. This is an example of adding extra details about the solution. So remember, the solution is given to you on the paper. If you want to add some more specific details or extra details about the solution, you can. Again, I said that you can, but you don't have to because it's optional. All right, then we have this down here. It will be very convenient for residents to put plastic bottles. That is the advantage of the solution. And that's what I say here. C is the advantage of the solution. And then, whoops, in all capital letters, I have the words, the advantage is not optional. You must add an idea. So students, if you want to add the green idea, that's optional. If you want to add some kind of idea like the blue idea, that's optional. But the advantage of the solution, when you explain why the solution is good, that is not optional. You must do that. Okay, so what I should have done is I said that green is explaining the negative effect of the problem. So let's look at this. It says some plastic bottles were thrown away as rubbish, which was not environmentally friendly. So you can see that this explains more about the problem. Okay, then for B, extra details about the solution. So the solution on the paper you will see. So it says, to address the issue, I would like to suggest providing more recycling bins. And then we're going to add some extra details near the entrance of each building. Okay. And then, like I said, the advantage of the solution is not optional. You must include the advantage. And when you see the two solutions, you must add the disadvantage as well. Okay. All right. So it says, when describing problems and solutions, it would be helpful to give more explanation to the readers so they can have a better understanding of your ideas. So you may explain in what ways the company or customers are affected due to the problems. So that's A, green, so the negative effect of the problem. And then when you're talking about the solution that's given on the paper, you can give more details for the solutions. That's B. Remember, that's optional. And then you also need to, must to, it is required to give the advantage of the solution. Remember, that's not optional. You have to do that, okay? All right, then there are some examples down here, okay? There's 3. So what it says is, you work in a large company that sells skincare products. You have started writing to your supervisor about some problems found in the company. Please continue writing the paragraphs. They would like you to explain the negative effect of the problem on the company or the customer. So remember, that's an example of A, explaining the negative effect of the problem. It says, think of a suitable solution. So they want you to add a solution. You don't have to add a solution because I've written the whole paragraph for you. I've provided it already. So provide a suitable solution for each problem and elaborate. So remember, add ideas. You must add the advantage of the solution, and this advantage is for the company and customer. I don't like how it says this, advantages to the company or customer, because really it's an advantage of the solution. The advantage is to the solution, but the advantage will benefit the company or the advantage will benefit the customer. And remember, if it's red and yellow, it's not optional. You must add it. Okay, then if you can, try to add some extra details to the solution, which remember is B, adding extra details to the solution. All right, so let's see what we got. It says, it was found that some new staff did not inform their supervisors when taking sick leave. That's the problem. They just sent WhatsApp messages to colleagues. That's more information. The staff are not following the company procedures. So this is more information about the problem and the negative impact. To solve the problem, it is suggested that the Human Resources Department hold briefing sessions for the new staff. So all of this is the solution, so that they have a clear understanding of the procedures for sick leave. Right, that's the, this is the advantage of the solution. So it's this one here, okay? All right, next we have the sales of our new skincare products were not satisfactory because of the relatively high price. So they have new products, but nobody's buying them because the price of the product is high. So as a result, the company's profits decreased. So that's the negative impact. It may be necessary to launch a promotional campaign for these products. This is the solution, such as offering discounts. So here's an example of extra details about the solution. So remember, it may be necessary to launch a promotional campaign for these products. So we're talking about a promotional campaign, and then we're giving more examples about that, such as offering discounts. As a result, this may attract more customers to buy our products. And so this is the advantage of the solution, which, remember, students, is not optional. You have to add the idea. I'm going to say this for everyone, students, because it's just important. All right, last one. Due to a lack of manpower, we could only provide hotline service from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. That's the problem, more information about the problem. It was inconvenient for customers as they could not get help in the evening. So that is more information about the problem. You're doing A, explaining the negative effect of the problem. Okay? A possible solution would be to hire part-time staff to answer calls at night. That's the solution. They can offer support until 9 p.m. every evening. Okay, that's added extra details. And what's the advantage? To provide better service to our customers. So that is the advantage of the solution. You're explaining why the solution is good because it will provide better service to the customers. And remember, you have to add the advantage of the solution. It is an added idea and it's a requirement. It is not optional. All right, students, it's 4:30. I actually have another class I have to give practice to, not for this module, but for another English module that I teach. So I'm sorry that I'm having to cut you short here. If you have any questions, definitely email me and I can help you and I'll contact you again. I will send these documents to you tomorrow. Okay. So thank you for coming. Have a lovely day. Good luck on the end of module assignment and all of the other assessments that you have. And that is all. Okay. So thank you guys. Bye-bye. I'm just going to hang up and end the meeting again. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be rude, but I have another practice session for another module I need to go to. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. All right.
Bye-bye.